How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final season
Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum braucht er was zum Essen, bitte sehr. Es macht ihn ein Geschwätz nicht satt, das schafft kein Essen her. Drum links, zwei, drei, drum links, zwei, drei, wo dein Platz genossen ist, weil ich ein in die Arbeit einweist und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist. Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum hat der Stiefel im Gesicht nicht gern. Er will unter sich keinen Sklaven sehen und über sich keinen Herrn. Drum links, zwei, drei, drum links, zwei, drei, wo dein Platz genossen ist, weil dich ein in die Arbeiter einreizt und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist. Und weil der Prolet ein Prolet ist, drum wird ihn kein anderer befreien. Es kann die Befreiung der Arbeiter nur das Werk der Arbeiter sein. Drum links, zwei, drei, drum links, zwei, drei, und ein Platz genossen ist, weil dich ein in die Arbeiter einreizt und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Здравствуйте, comrades. Welcome to Socialism Saturday. Socialism Saturday is when we watch the real far left, the farthest of the far left, the most dystopian of the dystopian. We are not watching Democrats on Socialism Saturday because Democrats, no matter how many times conservatives say it on Twitter, Democrats are not communists and socialists. We are not watching liberals or progressives on Socialism Saturday because, again, no matter how many times conservative retards say that they are communists, they really are not. The real communists and socialists hate the liberals. They kind of tolerate the progressives sometimes, mostly because they think they can radicalize the progressives to make them more far left. But make no mistake, liberals and progressives and Democrats are not communists and socialists. We are talking about the real radical revolutionary socialists that are trying to overthrow our entire way of life. If you want to know where critical race theory and anti-racism in schools comes from, it's people we watch on Socialism Saturday. If you want to know where gender ideology, queer theory, transing their kids, drag queen story hour comes from, it's the people we watch on Socialism Saturday. If you want to know where environmental justice and climate change activism and Greta Thunberg comes from, it's the people we watch on Socialism Saturday. If you want to know who's shouting their abortion, advocating for free abortion on demand up until birth or maybe even beyond birth, it's the people we watch on Socialism Saturday. If you want to know who's defunding the police, doing the pro-Palestine protests, doing the encampments on college campuses, guess what? It's the people we watch on Socialism Saturday. Literally every major problem that we are talking about in the country right now. If you want to know who's attacking the ICE facilities, if you want to know who's attacking the ICE agents, throwing rocks at the ICE agents, organizing the protests all over the country that, by the way, are still going on even though conservative media stopped covering it because God knows conservatives can only pay attention to one or two things at a time. They say they can walk and chew gum. No, they really can't. They can only pay attention to one thing at a time. So all these protests are still happening all over the country. They're just not getting any coverage anymore because it's not spicy. It will be spicy again, make no mistake. But the origin of those protests are the people we watch on Socialism Saturday. And so every week, and sometimes during the week as well, we take a couple hours out of our time and we hang out and we drink some beer and we watch the real radical revolutionary far left. And we learn what they're talking about. We learn how they're strategizing. We learn what they care about. We are studying our enemy. We are studying our enemy from a detached perspective to understand how they did what they did, what they actually care about, how they're organizing, who the major players are, who the organizations are, and what they actually believe. Not the conservative bullshit narrative. We want to know what they actually believe. Because if you don't know what your enemy actually believes, then you can't predict what your enemy is going to do next. If you are running around selling conservative bullshit lie after conservative bullshit lie because it makes you money and gets you clicks on the internet, you aren't actually fighting the enemy. You're actually causing more problems than you are providing solutions. So we don't buy into any of that at all. We want to know what the real radical revolutionary far left says. And that is why we do this. And we do it to study our enemy, to learn what's going on, and to try to get this information out there so that someday, dare to dream, people on the right can actually start paying attention and actually start fighting the real communists and socialists, because there is currently no opposition to the radical revolutionary far left in this country. And that is why the radical revolutionary far left is winning. That is why they will continue to win. Do not be fooled by the fact that Donald Trump is in office. The radical revolutionary far left is thrilled with this and has been thrilled with this since he got elected, because it's allowing them to actually grow and expand, recruit and radicalize more people to the radical revolutionary far left. So that's what we're doing here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me I'll turn on the comments on the screen so you guys can see your chat on the screen. Let me show you what we're going to be watching today. We're going to be, I'm curious what we can expect. So did you guys know? Did you know it's almost the end of July? How crazy is that? It is almost the end of July. Where the fuck did this year go? I feel like I had so many plans at the start of the year, and many of those things have been accomplished. I've written 4 books. I've launched a nonprofit. I've done all sorts of stuff. But, like, where did my time go? Where did my year go? What happened? The reason I bring this up is that after July is August. And do you know what starts to happen at the end of August? College students start returning to campus. And colleges start gearing back up for the school year ahead. And even though conservatives are in a frenzy over defunding Harvard, defunding Columbia, defunding, the colleges are still going to be doing exactly what they were doing last year, because conservatives haven't actually solved the problem in the colleges. They've just put on a good show for the media. So I'm curious about a couple things. The number one thing I'm curious about right now is, what can we expect in regards to pro-Palestine activism on college campuses this fall. Because starting at the beginning of 2024, last year, we started seeing these encampments pop up over college campuses. We started seeing these groups take over buildings. We started seeing them take over libraries. They're always doing these protests. The protests are constant and ongoing. The encampments are still going, by the way. Did you guys know they're literally still, like, or at least they were in the spring, setting up encampments on college campuses? It's never stopped. Just because the media stopped covering it doesn't mean it's stopped. This is why we don't rely on the news media for our information. We go directly to the primary sources. However, certainly it has gotten more difficult for them because the Trump administration is targeting protesters to deport them, which, by the way, the Trump administration is losing that battle, which is exactly what I said would happen. Mahmoud Khalil is now a martyr on the left. Who predicted that Mahmoud Khalil was going to become a martyr on the left? Who predicted that? Can we actually just go to my Substack and see? Oh God, I'm going to have to spell Mahmoud. Fuck. I don't know how to do that. I do know how to spell martyr. Who predicted on March 10th, like the day Mahmoud Khalil got arrested, that he was going to become a martyr on the far left? Oh, that was me. Who predicted from the very beginning the Trump administration wasn't going to be able to deport him? Because I've been through the immigration process. I have a green card husband, okay? I went for 4 years through the immigration process. I know how the immigration system works. I predicted from the very beginning the Trump administration wasn't going to be able to deport him because he does actually have a legal green card. And nothing he did was illegal. Like, saying that you don't like Israel and that you're pro-Palestine is not actually illegal. Whether or not you're a U.S. citizen or not, it doesn't matter. He had a green card. They were never going to be able to deport him. So I predicted he was going to be a martyr, and he is now a martyr. I predicted he wasn't going to be able to get deported, and he's not deported. And now they made him a martyr on the left, which is exactly what I said was going to happen the entire effing time. But still, this is now a challenge that the left is running into on campuses, that they're being actively targeted by all these Zionist groups. They're being actively targeted by groups like Canary Mission that are providing lists of people to be deported to the administration. The administration is getting students expelled for a speech they don't like. And by the way, listen, I'm not on the side of the students, and I want to make that very, very clear. When we're talking about the student protesters, we're talking about radical revolutionary socialists, fundamentally. I don't care if they get deported. It's not like a personal thing. I don't have any personal investment in this. They're communists and socialists. I just don't think they should be deported for free speech. I think they should be deported for being communists and socialists. And no one bring up that fucking Communist Control Act of 1954, because no, you cannot use the Communist Control Act against them, because the Communist Party of America no longer exists, and that's who that act applies to. You would have to completely pass a new law. You'd have to identify organizations. You'd have to identify ways to figure out they're communists, all that stuff. Anyway, we can talk about that another time. I'm just saying, I'm not actually opposed to deporting these students, because I think we should be deporting communists and socialists, but that's not why they're being deported. They're being deported because they're speaking against Israel and protesting against Israel, which the Trump administration doesn't like, because Trump got $100 million from Miriam Adelson, who speaks with an Israeli accent. And Trump is completely cucked to Israel, and he's bent over a table getting fucked by Benjamin Netanyahu like every single day. And that's why they're deporting the college students. Has nothing to do with whether or not they're dangerous, has nothing to do with whether or not they're communists. It has to do with free speech, and that's going to impact all of us at some point. I digress. I'm curious what we can expect this fall. I'm curious how the left is thinking about this, because here's what I know about the left. They can expel as many students as they want from Columbia. They can take back as many degrees as they want. They can pull as much funding as they want from the universities. The students don't give a flying fuck. The faculty doesn't give a flying fuck. The faculty and the students actually see themselves basically in a war with the administration of their own universities. And I don't think this is something, again, the Trump administration doesn't understand. Most people on the conservative right don't understand. You think, oh, the left controls higher education. They don't want the universities to crumble. No. The left controls the academic side of higher education. They control the faculty. They control the students. They are the faculty and the students. The left does not control the administration. the administration are considered to be too corporatist. The administration, the university system in general, is seen to be a capitalist enterprise because the universities, they're being positioned as their primary goal is to turn out future professionals that are going to support the capitalist endeavors of the United States, yada, yada, yada. So you have the faculty and the students that honestly don't give a flying fuck if the university crumbles. And actually, the person we're going to watch today just said a couple weeks ago at the Socialism Conference, she thinks that you should use the resources of the university in order to fight and destroy the university. I should have had that pulled up. Hang on, let me see if I can find that real quick. Let me see if I can find that clip real quick. I know I posted it on my Twitter at the time. Hang on one second. Let me see if I put her name in it. Eman. I know we have a clip of her saying this at the Socialism Conference. Okay, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. If I can't find it easily, I'm not going to worry about it. But no, can't find it easily. Maybe someone else can find it. Anyway, regardless, we absolutely saw Imam Abdelhadi, who is a professor in the sociology department, I'm pretty sure, at the University of Chicago. Imam spoke at the Socialism Conference a couple weeks ago when we were covering that, and she flat out said, in no uncertain terms, use the resources of the university to fight the university. And she wasn't even the only college professor we saw say that. We also saw a college professor from Princeton speak at the same conference saying exactly the same thing. Use the resources of the university to fight the university. We also saw a faculty member at Rutgers talking about utilizing the unions to organize against the university. So this is actually a very common theme on the far left. It's a very common thing that you will hear faculty members and students say. I remember when the Columbia protests first started back at the beginning of 2024, and we were watching footage from inside the Columbia encampment taken by like a far left media company, and they were interviewing one of the student leaders that was organizing the whole thing, and he flat out called Columbia University, where he was getting his master's degree. This was a student at the university. He called Columbia an illegitimate university, an illegitimate institution. This is why students are always taking over buildings and renaming them, because they believe they're decolonizing the curriculum, removing capitalism from the curriculum when they take over the buildings and they rename it the People's Library of whatever the fuck. That's what we're talking about. So the students and the faculty at universities do actually see themselves to be in an active conflict with not only Israel, with not only the Trump administration, but also with their own university. And no, they don't understand the irony of getting a paycheck from the university and fighting the university and wanting to destroy the university, because they believe that if they destroy things like the university system, they will bring about their Marxist revolution, and then they'll get what they really want, because they don't actually care about necessarily the university. They don't even really care about their degrees. This is why it's actually kind of stupid that, well, it's not stupid. I'm not suggesting there shouldn't be consequences for what they're doing at the universities, but I'm saying that if you have the expectation that students getting expelled is going to deter this type of activism, it's not. If you have the expectation that getting people fired from universities is going to defer this type of activism, it's not. It's just not. And so while I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, I am saying that I think we need to be realistic about what we can expect from these people. These are true believer revolutionary socialists. They want there to be, what they want more than anything is the socialist utopia, is the Marxist utopia. Reagan, let me see that clip, if that clip is what I wanted. Thank you for looking that up. I appreciate it. No, go to the site, go to the clip. Let's see if Reagan found the clip that I was hoping for. Okay, so this is not a mom, but this is another faculty member at another university. So yeah, let's listen to this one. This is not the person we're listening to, but this person said basically the same stuff as a mom did. So we're going to listen to this.
You need to know what is the work that you want to do and in the service of whom. Are you trying to serve institutional building? I'm personally not interested in that kind of work. Or are you trying to build with colleagues and students against the machinery of the institution, and hopefully with institutional resources? And I think that's what I'm more interested in. Like, get the university's money to do the work you want to do to dismantle the university within. I think that is what I would, what I would advise, what I try to do. And
This is a professor at Princeton. This person used to be a professor at Harvard, and then she got denied tenure at Harvard. And so then she went to Tufts, and she was a professor at Tufts. And then she became a professor at Princeton. And this is her speaking at the Socialism Conference a couple weeks ago, explicitly saying, get the university's money to do the work you want to do to dismantle the university from within. It's important people understand this. Just because these are faculty members and students at universities does not mean they have respect for the university system. It does not mean that they are afraid of universities being defunded. They don't actually care. They're like parasites. They're going to leech the university for as much as they can. And then when the university is out of resources, they're going to go somewhere else and they're going to do the same thing there, because this is how the left operates. They do not care about maintaining the institutions, because ultimately their primary goal is to overthrow capitalism, to overthrow the US government, to overthrow the capitalist constitution, to overthrow the capitalist university, to decolonize the university. Listen, man, if places like Harvard and Princeton and Columbia fall, the left actually sees that as a feature, not a bug. They will have overthrown the institution. They have decolonized the institution, and now they can build up their institutions from scratch. So, I am interested in what the left sees as the path forward for pro-Palestinian activism. And I'm particularly interested in Imam Abdelhadi. Actually, I should have set that up differently. Hang on, computer. Why aren't you doing what I want you to do? Computers never do what I want them to do. Anyway, just like men. Never do what they want. Never do what I want them to do. Never. Got to be difficult. Anyway, I'm particularly interested in Imam Abdelhadi. Now, who in the chat recognizes Imam Abdelhadi's name? Does anyone recognize Imam? Does anyone know where we've seen her before? We have covered Imam's associates more than we've covered Imam directly, but we have streamed Imam on this channel several times. Do you guys know where we know her from? Oh, not that one. This one. We know her from a little book called Everything for Everyone. She wrote this book with Emmy O'Brien. We have covered Emmy O'Brien countless times on this channel. Emmy O'Brien is one of our favorite Abolish the Family socialists, second only to Sophie Lewis. Emmy O'Brien is Sophie Lewis's best friend. They do Abolish the Family stuff together. They're both queer communists. They're both non-binary. Emmy O'Brien wrote a very well-known book on the left with Imam Abdelhadi called Everything for Everyone, an oral history of the New York Commune 2052 through 2072. In this book is an interesting book, and we probably should do a book club on it at some point when I get my shit together. This book is a vision for what the future Marxist utopia looks like. It is a visioning exercise. It's them saying, okay, let's say we're able to overthrow capitalism and get to the type of commune that we want. How does that actually work? What do people do? How does that type of society organize itself? The left does stuff like this all the time, where they write kind of like they treat them like sci-fi novels. It's obviously a fictional novel. It's set in the future. They treat them like sci-fi books, but they're visioning exercises for the type of the world that the left is trying to achieve. Now, Everything for Everyone is actually a really popular book on the left. It's so popular that Common Notions Press, who is the publisher of this book, Socialist Publishing Company, has just launched, this is actually very recent, Project 2052 Revolutionary Dispatches of the World of Everything for Everyone. So now they're expanding. They had a lot of success with this book, Everything for Everyone. And now they're actually expanding to say to other people, hey, do you guys want to create basically fan fictions based on Everything for Everyone? They're basically putting out a call for submissions to ask other socialists to write contributions based on Everything for Everyone about how they're visioning the future Marxist utopia. And they're calling it Project 2052, a website of revolutionary speculative short fiction, visual art, and poetry set in the world of Everything for Everyone, an oral history of the New York Commune 2052 to 2072. And you can see here's their pitch. They're asking for Patreon funding to support it. They're building a whole website about this stuff. And so this is like not an insignificant thing. It is known about by a lot of activists on the left. It is something that they use to say, okay, now we've got a target of where we want to go. And this is important, guys, because like the right has no vision for the country. The right has no vision for what they want the country to actually look like. All the right understands is we don't want Democrats. Everything Democrats do is bad. That's what the right understands. The left, the real far left, isn't sitting around going, I don't want Republicans. Everything Republicans do is bad. That's not what they're doing. They're actually creating a vision and a plan for the world that they want to create. And that's really important because if you are trying to do a really big project like overthrowing the federal government and abolishing the Constitution, if you don't have a vision for what happens after you do that, then you can't get other people on your team. But if you're putting out a vision into the world to say, guys, the reason that we need to abolish the government and overthrow the Constitution is we're going to create this type of society, and this is how it's going to be better for you. They're giving up people something to fight for. They're giving people a way to look at this and say, oh, that's why we're doing this. We're not just protesting in the street because we're mentally ill, which is what the right thinks. The right's like, all these people are mentally ill narcissists and they don't have jobs. That's not actually what's happening. The left has reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. And it's not because they're mentally ill, and it's not because they're narcissists, and it's not because they just like screaming into the sky, and it's not any of these things. It's because they have a vision for the world that they are trying to achieve, and destabilizing our society is the only path to that vision, because you can't fundamentally overthrow one society without destabilizing it first. The destabilization is a feature, it is not a bug. They can't get the world they want until they destroy the one we have. So that's what they're trying to do. And this book, written by Imam Abdelhadi and Emmy O'Brien, is one of the ways in which they do that. It's not the only way that they do that, but it is a very popular way that they do that. A lot of people on the left know about this book. That's why they're able to launch a whole fan fiction website of people who are actively submitting things saying, here's our vision for the communist utopia. No, only retards think so. Socialist plan is effectively milk comes from a store. No, it's not. This is the type of conservative retardation that we don't allow here, bro. Either you're serious about understanding the left, or you're a fucking loser and you can run right back to Fox News. The choice is entirely yours. But your comment tells me that you haven't actually listened to a word I've said so far, so we're going to see how this goes. This is the problem with the right. You lay out exactly what the left is doing. You say, here's what they're doing. Here's why they're doing it. Here's how they're doing it. Here's how you understand what they're doing. Here's how it contrasts with what the right is doing. And the right comes back and they say, the left is stupid. And that's the right-wing response to this whole situation, which is why the left is winning, which is why they'll continue to win. And then the right goes, because I'll call them out on my channel, I'll call them mentally ill retards. And then the right goes, you're literally a communist. And then they run right back to Fox News, and they never use their brain to actually think about anything in their life, because they're not smart enough to grasp what's actually going on. And this is why we're in the state that we're in, because the right is fucking stupid. So today we're going to be watching a presentation that Imam Abdelhadi did at the University of Oregon. And you know what's kind of fun about this is the reason that we have video of this presentation is just because this random guy happened to take video of it. And I'm pretty sure we've seen this guy before. I'm almost positive that this guy is involved with the Party for Socialism and Liberation in Portland, Oregon, because I'm pretty sure we've seen him before when we were watching a PSL meeting in Portland. I'm pretty sure he was at that meeting. And you know what's cool about this guy is this guy just runs around Portland. He's like an independent videographer. And he records all their protests and he records their meetings and he just puts them up on the channel. And if you don't know who this guy is and you've never seen him before, yeah, so this is PSL. This is PSL. I'm almost positive this guy is with the PSL in Portland. I'm pretty sure. So he goes and records their events and puts them on the website. And that is why we have Imam Abdelhadi speaking at the University of Oregon in February earlier this year. And the talk was called Palestine and the Future of U.S. Campus Activism. Imam Abdelhadi is a scholar, organizer, and writer based in Chicago. She is the assistant professor of sociology in the Department of Comparative Human Development at the University of Chicago. Her research has been cited in NPR, The Washington Post, the Associated Press, and other outlets. She co-wrote the revolutionary sci-fi novel Everything for Everyone. We already talked about that. And writes a regular column on Palestine and the politics for In These Times magazine. In These Times is a socialist publication. She is a longtime organizer in the movement for Palestinian liberation and is currently active through the faculty and staff for justice in Palestine at University of Chicago. Oh, wow. She's using the resources of the university to attack the university. I had no idea. She helped found the group Sociologist for Palestine, a group organizing within the American Sociological Association to advance the resolution supporting a just peace in Israel-Palestine, and has also been involved with the Uncommitted National Movement. And she gave a talk at University of Oregon back in February, and that's what we're going to watch. So that's what we're doing tonight for Socialism Saturday. I hope that that people appreciate that. Couple things before we get started. Of course, number one way to support my work is always to head over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. Signing up for a membership of $8 a month, $80 a year. I'm completely 100% funded by people like you. I can't spend time doing all this stuff on the internet unless you guys support my ability to do so. When you sign up on the Substack, you'll get updates, you'll get clips, you'll get access to spy streams, which are supporter exclusive streams. You'll get all sorts of cool stuff over on the Substack, and you'll get my appreciation because I can't do it without you. Another way you can support my work is by sending in a super chat. We do have a nominal goal of $100 in super chats for Socialism Saturday. You guys can always send me more money if you want to, but I ask if you would come to the stream, if you enjoy the stream, if you're getting value out of it, if I've been able to answer your questions, which I will take all questions in the chat as we make our way through this video. Please feel free to send in an appreciation tip, $5, $10, $100, $500 if you want to. You don't have to stick to $100. You can send me more money than that if you want to. But this is one of the ways I fund the work I'm doing because I'm 100% independently funded. I have no political allegiance. I have no political tribe. My only job is to show up and show you guys receipts and to tell you guys the truth. And I'm really thankful that you allow me to do it. Also, I wanted to let people know that another new way to support my work is through the newly launched nonprofit, the Center for Leftwing Studies. Now, the Center for Leftwing Studies started as kind of a joke where we were infiltrating the Institute on Male Supremacism conference a couple months back. And the Institute for Research on Male Supremacism is an actual center. It's a nonprofit. And their conference was funded by the Center for Right-Wing Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. And so there is an actual Center for Right-Wing Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. It's not the only type of organization that exists around the country like that. There are all sorts of colleges that have these little research centers that are purely dedicated to studying the right. And so as I spent 4 days infiltrating this conference, there was a thought in the back of my head, and that thought is, can I just start my own nonprofit to research the left? Because I have all this primary source evidence that I've been sitting on for years, not because I want to sit on it necessarily, but because I don't have anything to do with it. And it's really hard to get it out there and to organize around it and to put it all into one place. And I was kind of like, can I just start my own nonprofit where the whole goal of the nonprofit is to become an archival house and research and analysis for what the left is doing based on primary source evidence? And then I started to look into it. And as it turns out, yes, you can just do things. Yes, I can start my own nonprofit. Yes, I can get a fiscal sponsor so that I don't have to have a board of directors telling me what to do. Yes, I can just do this. And so I did. I've started my own nonprofit. It is called the Center for Left-Wing Studies. You can find it at leftwingstudies.com. I'll put the link in the chat. Thanks, 2 ladies. I'm sorry I can't give you more. I'm out of work until school starts again. My daughter says hi, and I will donate more when I start getting paid again. 2 ladies, you do so much. And I'm so grateful for all the support. And I do appreciate the super chat. And you know what? You are welcome here, whether you're sending in super chats or not. You've always been a wonderful supporter of my work, and I appreciate you. Now, the cool thing about the Center of Left-Wing Studies is because it is a nonprofit, it is separate from the other work I do. I have to keep it separate because we just have to do it this way because it's a nonprofit. You can give tax-deductible gifts. And so the reason that we have to keep it separate is because the government treats nonprofit entities different than for-profit entities. So what I'm saying here only applies to the gifts for the Center of Left-Wing Studies, but we're going to be doing a lot of cool archival projects. And I just want to give you guys an update because I'm actually really excited. One of the archival projects we're going to be doing is called Mapping the Modern Left. And basically what I want to do is I actually want to create a massive map, a literal map of what the modern activist left actually looks like. I want to map all their organizations. I want to map all their activists. I want to map all the major things that we need to know and be able to track. I want to be able to set up ways to track this information in real time. And I have an update on that. I actually am building out like a way to do this, and it's coming along so nicely. So here's what's happening. So the project to map the modern left. This is a giant years-long project. This is not a small, insignificant thing. There are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of organizations on the far left. We have to come up with an information taxonomy that makes all this information easy and accessible. Also, we're putting that information into a physical map. And what we want to be able to do is create a database of these organizations to be able to say, who are the real communist threats in this country? Where are they located? What type of work are they doing? What are they doing in real time to be able to track their real-time movements? How are they affiliated with each other? We're building out a giant fuck-off database, okay? One of the things I'm working on the back end right now is I'm working on a way to allow people to volunteer to come help me to build out this database. Does anyone on the left have their own map? If anyone on the left had their own map, Clump, I'd probably be using it, wouldn't I? If anyone on the left had a map, I would probably already just be using that. The reality is there are again, as I've explained to you numerous times, and you're either gonna smarten up and start listening at some point, or you're not gonna be here. I promise you that. There are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of leftist groups all over the country. The left is a decentralized organizing structure. That means there is no reason for any leftist group to have a map of every other leftist group on the left. It doesn't make sense. There's no reason for them to do that. These groups don't always work with each other. Many times they don't even like each other. Antifa does not like the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I can give a million examples of that. So no, there's nothing that we can use on the left. If there was something that we could use on the left, we already would have done it. We have to build this out ourselves. This is an entirely decentralized movement. People think that, oh, well, just look at the Democratic Socialists of America. The Democratic Socialists of America are one group. They're one group. Do you know how many activist organizations there are on the left? So, this is something that we have to do ourselves. No one else that I know of has ever done anything like this. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm basically building out ways to make it really simple for many people to be involved in the data entry process. Many people that I have trained, and by the way, there's not going to be a single person involved in the data entry of this that has not been trained by me through Socialism Saturday, through the classes that I've done, and stuff like that, because I'm not just building out a giant database just to build out a database and to say I have it. I want a database with accurate information that has accurately analyzed the situation and is providing high quality content. And I can't get that unless I have actually trained the people who are involved in inputting this. But I have heard from a lot of you, and a lot of you want to be involved and you want to volunteer, and I really appreciate it. So what I'm doing right now is building out a way where you can go in and fill out a simple form for whatever organization you want to put in. And then it's going to map that onto this map. There's only a few things in here right now because I'm troubleshooting some stuff, so I didn't do a lot of entries. But you can create an entry like this, which is a basic entry. Don't worry about this stuff. We're going to fix how it looks later. And then that automatically populates it to a map. And now I'm also adding tables onto the site where we're going to be able to filter. Look at all the major organizations on the left. Look at all the local organizations on the left. We're going to be able to filter it by state. We're going to be able to filter it by type of organization. This might seem like a small deal, but this is actually really cool because it's going to allow us to save so much time in terms of like everything being automated and being able to bring people on to help with the data entry of this, because this is a data entry problem. It's a data management problem. It's an information like architecture problem. And so if I can make something that's really simple for people to use that just populates in a whole bunch of different places, and can you imagine what it's going to be like when there's 4 pins in this map right now, just because I didn't put that many in because I'm still troubleshooting a couple things. Can you imagine how cool this map is going to be when we get all the major leftist activist organizations into this map? We're going to be able to see where they are by state. We're going to see where they are by type of organization, by where they're focused. We're going to be able to see large national organizations, local organizations. We're going to be able to take all this information and create a real-time monitoring dashboard. It's going to be really cool. This is just one of the projects that I'm working on via the Center for Leftwing Studies. There's going to be other projects to include the Queer Marxism Project, which is specifically about the development of queer Marxism and the evolution of that ideology. There's going to be a project called the Gender Cult, where earlier this morning, or this afternoon rather, I was working on creating a list of little university centers for gender studies, queer studies that exist at universities all over the country to monitor the people that are actually pushing out all this insane research, again, doing this in real time, because a lot of this stuff comes out from little teeny tiny research centers at universities that no one has ever heard of and no one is actually monitoring. So we're going to have that. We're also going to have the Zine Archive. The Zine Archive is going to be a place where you can actually go on and download leftist propaganda and read it and see what they're talking about. We're going to organize that by year. We're going to organize it by subject matter. I've also got another automated thing for both of these projects now, which is super cool. So we're already making a ton of progress, or at least I am. And so I'm trying to get this into a place where I can bring more people and more volunteers into the fold so we can all work on building this out together. And you can be involved as a volunteer. You can also be involved to give donations, which I do appreciate. If you want to give a donation to this, head over to the Give button, click Make Your Donation here. Thank you to the people who donated already, and I really do appreciate it. I want to do a special shout out to Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute, because you guys don't know this, but Royal Oasis has actually been supporting my work for a while. Now, that might seem weird because we talk about psychotherapy on this channel and we say socialists love psychotherapy, which is true. But what you guys got to understand is there are actually real, like, good psychotherapists out there. There are actually good psychologists out there that do provide amazing services. Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute, I have to give a massive shout out because they've actually been supporting my work for years and years. They do a great job. And they messaged me and they were like, Karlyn, do you want us to switch our donations over to the nonprofit? And I said, yes, that would actually be really great. So they're making a monthly donation through the nonprofit. I just wanted to give them a shout out because they've always been wonderful supporters. And I probably don't thank them enough for all the support they're doing. So if you are looking for something like this, they do telecounseling. So if you're like, I know that like people like to shit on psychology and psychotherapy and like all that stuff. But honestly, there are really good psychologists and really good like psychotherapists out there that can help you through if you're going through challenges or stuff like that. And so if you guys are looking for something like that, definitely check them out. I will put the link in the chat below. And they were one of the first people on board that said, do you want us to switch over to funding the nonprofit? And I said, yes, please, because I need to pay for things related to the nonprofit. And that would be really, really great. And hopefully we're going to use the nonprofit to go out and get grants and stuff like that so that we can have money to document this stuff. And just, you know what? My goal right now is to create things that I can do to basically articulate this information out to the world, to create high quality research about what the left is doing. I would love to someday have a conference for the Center of Left-Wing Studies. I would like someday to have my own journal, which would be in the form of a zine and all that stuff. And so I do actually have big plans for this, and I appreciate all the support I've been getting so far. And this is going to be a huge part of what I'm doing. Of course, we will always have the for-profit stuff, which is, you know, the Decode the Left stuff, which is the Substack, which is the YouTube channel, which is the books, the Red Menace Press books and all that stuff. So I basically have created a whole ecosystem for myself. I have a for-profit arm, and now I have a nonprofit arm, and the nonprofit is going to provide research and analysis and primary sources. And what I want to do is create a community of people who are actually interested in understanding the development of left activism in this country, what they're doing today, what they're going to do next, things like that. So that's what we're working on. I really appreciate everyone who supported it so far. I appreciate everyone who has reached out to volunteer and be a part of it. And I will be in touch soon, and there will be a way for volunteers to you know, get involved and to start helping input information. I'm just trying to get the back end set up so that I can make it easy for everyone. And I think we're going to be able to create something really, really, really cool, a resource that we can give to the world to say, here is what you need to know about the left. And so maybe I will, okay? Can you DM him to me at least? Maybe I will. I am going to be going out for grants. I am going to be going out. I'm going to be trying to. I just need one big donor, man. I need one millionaire. I've been talking about this. Like one of the reasons I set up a nonprofit is because millionaires like to give tax deductible gifts. So I just need one. I need a millionaire or a billionaire. One of you has a rich uncle. I promise you, one of you has a rich father or a rich uncle who is interested in funding stuff like this. Just send them my way. I just need one. If I can get a really big grant or a really big gift, we are going to be able to I'm going to be able to hire people. I'm going to be able to dedicate all of our time to doing this. And it's going to be awesome. Your dad donates to Hillsdale College. I'm going to convince him to switch. See, this is what we need to do. If your parents or your family members or your friends are donating to conservative organizations that, you know, Hillsdale College is fine, but how much further can I stretch that donation doing something like this than Hillsdale College? I'm going to appreciate it so much more than Hillsdale College, I promise you. So if you have people in your life that you can convince to fund something like this, hey, go and do it. Everyone's got to take one for the team. So that's what we're doing, guys. That's what's going on. I really appreciate everyone's support so far. Let's get into our video, shall we? Let's get into our video. Oh, before we do the video, we do have a helpful explainer video. So for people who are new to Socialism Saturday, is anyone new? By the way, let us know if you're new to Socialism Saturday in the chat. If you are new, we have rules for Socialism Saturday. There's a very specific way we run this stream. You have walked into a classroom, and I need you to know what to expect and how to get the most out of this and how to make a nice environment for everyone, especially for me. So please pay attention to this short video about the rules for Socialism Saturday. All right, for anyone that's new, we have some rules for Socialism Saturday. Let me go over them real quick. Socialism Saturday is a research group and a class. We do take this seriously. You're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to have a drink or two. You're allowed to kind of kick back and joke in the chat. However, I need everyone to understand that when we are researching the radical revolutionary left, we do take this seriously. And so if you're shitposting in my chat, I'm going to tell you to stop. If you are posting off topic in the chat, I'm going to ask you to stop at some point because it's going to be distracting to what we're doing. I need you to think of yourself as in a classroom. And I'm not talking about an online classroom. I'm talking about a real life classroom, okay? When you walk into a real life classroom, I am the teacher, you are the students. You are sitting in the desk, I am sitting in the front of the classroom. I'm standing there teaching you what is going on. If you were in a real life classroom, you wouldn't walk in, start throwing shit at the wall, yelling, saying, I disagree with you because my best friend said something different. That's not allowed. I don't care about your feelings. I'm not going to coddle your opinion. And that's going to be the way it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. But if you are in my classroom, you will respect my rules and you will listen to me. And if you do not do that, then you will be removed. And how you feel about being removed makes no difference to me at all. The expectation is if you're going to be here and you're going to be watching socialism with us and you're going to be participating in the chat, you are doing it because you are serious about learning this topic and understanding this topic. The minute that I think that you're just fucking around or you're trolling or something like that, you're going to get put in a timeout or permanently banned, and that's just going to be the way it is. Rule number 2, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. I can do whatever I want. because I am the queen fascist bitch of my YouTube channel. So I can say and do whatever I want. But if you don't insult me and you don't insult other people in the chat, we're not going to have a problem. So be an adult, rein that shit in. Number 3, no whining. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care if you feel personally attacked. It makes no difference to me at all. And I promise you, I care about your feelings a little bit more than the left does. So if you can't handle me, you can't handle the left. If you start whining and complaining because you don't like the rules or you think you're being treated unfairly, you can just leave, bro. There's the door. You don't have to be here. Number 4, listen. Our job here and why we do Socialism Saturday is to listen to what the left is saying, to listen to what real leftists are doing in the real world. This is not to support your confirmation bias. This is not to support any conservative bullshit narrative that you may have heard on Glenn Beck that one time. This is not to be what you want it to be. This is to engage with reality. We need to listen, we need to actively listen, and we need to understand the left better than they understand themselves. That is the purpose of this exercise, okay? As part of that, I do ask that people refrain from debunking. You do not have a single debunk in your arsenal about the left is stupid because of reasons X, Y, B, and Z, or the left is her hypocrites for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. You don't have a single debunk that we haven't heard before, okay? And every time you put energy into debunking, that is energy that you're not putting into listening. So if I see you debunking, I'm going to tell you to stop, because you need to put that energy into listening instead. Lastly, break the rules of my chat or disrespect me in any way, and I'll just kick you out, and that's the way it is. All right, guys, those are the rules for Socialism Saturday. People are asking how much money do I want for my nonprofit in the chat. I want as much money as I can get for that nonprofit. The more money I have, the more stuff we're going to be able to do. The more money I have, the more people I can hire to do data entry or to follow my bidding and to get the information out there and do whatever I want them to do, essentially. So yeah, listen, with the nonprofit, guys, of course, like, individual donations are accepted and valued, and I really appreciate everyone making donations, whether it's like $10, $50, $100, whatever it happens to be. You can make donations one time. You can do an annual donation. The big thing with a nonprofit, though, is what I'm really looking for is I either want to get a giant grant or several giant grants in an ideal world, or I need to find rich donors that understand the value of what I'm doing and to get them to fund it. And so as much money as as much money as I can get, honestly. There is not going to be a time where I'm like, you know what, that's just too much money. That's not going to happen. Like, when it comes to like a nonprofit, the benefit of being able to make large gifts and have that tax deduction is a very real thing for like people with a lot of money. And so, you know what, that's what we're going for. Maybe we'll even do a funding drive at some point. I used to work in nonprofits. I know how all that stuff works. And so that's the deal with that. There are some grants that I'm going to be writing, proposals for in the coming months. I already have a whole list of them and stuff like that. So hopefully at some point we just we win, because you know what, inevitably we will win. It just might take some time. Sometimes it takes longer than you want it to. Sometimes it comes across quickly and you don't even know. Sometimes you just happen to have someone in the chat that has a rich uncle, and they go talk to that rich uncle, and that rich uncle says, that's actually a really good idea. I want to give $1 million to that. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're off to the races and we've got money to be able to do stuff. So that would be my ideal. I want it. It's very important to me that my operation is set up outside of like the political ecosystem. I always want it to be, what did I literally just say? Millions. There's no, I'm not going to give you, I only want 100,000. I want millions of dollars. If Moms for Liberty can raise millions of dollars to be able to ban books and make no tangible progress, there's no reason why we can't raise millions of dollars. Millions. Now, if someone wants to make a $10,000 or $25,000 or $100,000 gift, I'll take that too. That'd be pretty great. I could do a lot with $10,000. I could do a lot with $25,000. I could do a lot with $100,000. I want this nonprofit to have millions of dollars in funding. That'd be pretty great. Anyway, we are getting into our presentation now, guys. If this is your first time at Socialism Saturday, what you should know is that you should be asking a lot of questions. So I have to say, I'm impressed that Allah is still here, because I already gave him a good dressing down. So Allah, congratulations. You have passed the initial hazing test of this community. So welcome. We appreciate you being here. If you have questions in the chat, please make sure you ask them. And if you need me to break down any of the language or explain what a mom is saying, please make sure you ask for that information. There's no shame in asking for questions, especially if you're newer to this type of content. Socialists might sound like they're speaking English, but they're really not. They're speaking their own separate language. And so sometimes for new people, it can be confusing or it can be overwhelming and you don't really know what you're listening for. It's okay to admit it. We love it when people ask questions here. Either I will answer it or people in the chat will answer it. Gothic, thank you for the super chat. Been watching Anna Kasparian on conservative media talk about the Middle East conflict. Kind of like her now. Well, just be careful about that. Also found a new socialist bookstore near me. Here's to the new Leftwing Studies. Yeah. So one of the things we are going to be tracking with the Center for Leftwing Studies is there are radical revolutionary bookstores all over the country. There are socialist bookstores in every major city. If you don't believe me, just type in revolutionary bookstore in your city or radical bookstore in your city or something about collective in your city, and you will get a list of radical revolutionary bookstores in your city that are specifically designed to sell socialist books, host socialist events, have educational gatherings for socialists, be community centers for socialists. These exist all over the place. One of the things we're going to be doing with the Center for Left-Wing Studies is making a giant fuck-off database of those bookstores so that we can track all the things we're doing. We can look at the presentations they're putting online. We can track what authors are on book tours and stuff like that. And that's how we know what the socialist left is thinking about and where their ideas are and stuff like that. So this is all just about information. The thing about the left is all of the information is out there. All of the information is public. If we can harness all of the information that we've been looking at for years and years and years on this channel and bring it into one central hub and make that accessible to people, that is the command center for what the left is doing. We're going to be able to do so much more with that and to make so much more sense of it. And quite frankly, no one else is doing this. So I'll do it. I'll do it. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Thank you. Let me add that to the tally. There we go. All right, guys, we're going to be getting into the presentation. This is Imam Abdelhadi speaking at the University of Oregon, and she is going to talk to us about how the left sees the future of pro-Palestine activism on college campuses and probably some other stuff too. Mount the like button if you haven't already. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Let's get this party started.
Happy to introduce you to someone I know, David Puraker. He's a student at the University of Oregon in the Department of Sociology PhD program. David is somebody I've worked with for a few years now as an advisor and have seen his brilliance as a scholar, his brilliance as a tactician and strategist, an organizer, and his role in working with YDSA here and DSA nationally has been so impressive to me. I've learned so much as a colleague working close to him and reading his work. And I'm just honored to ask him to come to the stage because, he's going to introduce Professor Abdelhadi here in a moment. But I want to say he's the one who had the idea of inviting her to campus here and touch base with me, and we move forward with this. And so it's only appropriate that he makes this introduction.
Oh. Hang on. Someone asked over on Rumble, Spartan asked over on Rumble, have I read Ted Kaczynski? Not only have I read Ted Kaczynski, I actually created an audio version of his manifesto. And it's part of the Inner Circle podcast. I recorded 8 years ago. If you've never read Ted Kaczynski's manifesto, you need to read that. It's the Ted Kaczynski in that manifesto talks about the left, and actually Ted Kaczynski in that manifesto, when he's talking about how the left operates, it was deeply influential for me. Now, obviously, I disavow all the bombing and the murdering and stuff like that. But in terms of just like how Ted Kaczynski was able to analyze the left in that manifesto, it's shockingly accurate, especially when you consider the time in which he did it, because it's not like we had the internet back then that really connected a lot of these ideas. And so one of the things he talked about in the manifesto was how the left co-ops organizations and how the left co-ops movements. And he was 100% right about that. And the thing is, like, I actually was, when I started analyzing queer Marxism, Ted Kaczynski's manifesto was very top of mind for me because how queer Marxists operate, that is exactly and explicitly what he described in that manifesto. And so I highly encourage everyone to read it. I think it's a really cool document. Again, disavowing all the violence and the bombing and that sort of stuff, but it was very insightful. So yeah, I'm a fan.
With no further ado, I want to welcome David Perecker to please come up here and share your invitation and welcome of Eman. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Michael, for those kind words. Thank you again to our sponsors and the Global Justice Program for making this event possible. And thank you again to all the students in this room and many who are not in this room whose activism and courage over the last year made this event possible. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce Dr. Eman Abdelhadi, a sociologist at the University of Chicago. Dr. Abdelhadi is a scholar of gender and religion. She has a book coming out soon called Impossible Futures: Why Women Leave Muslim American Communities. They're also the co-author of Everything for Everyone, an oral history of the New York Commune, 2052 to 2072. They're also an organizer in the labor and, of course, the Palestine solidarity movement, and a columnist for In These Times magazine. I first met Eman last August in Montreal at a small conference of critical sociologists on the margins of the annual ASA conference, the American Sociological Association. Eman was there to present about an organizing effort that she was involved in, called Sociologists for Palestine, and passed out buttons and educated us about this. Sociologists for Palestine is a really exciting and important effort within the profession of sociology to raise awareness and actually get the ASA Council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire, calling for divestment from corporations that benefit from the genocide in Palestine. It was passed successfully through the ASA, and I think it's a really important example of how we can connect our professional contexts, also our working contexts, our labor unions, with these vital international issues. And I think Eman will be speaking somewhat about Sociologists for Palestine this evening. When I saw them talk, I knew immediately that I wanted to have them come to Eugene and speak to all of us and share their knowledge and experiences. I picked up Eman from the airport yesterday evening, and in the car we were chatting, of course, about all that we've been doing here, all the activities and achievements of our coalition over the last year. I also talked about our campus labor movement and the remarkable success of the UO Student Workers Union that many of us have also been involved in.
Thank you.
After describing all these things, Eman remarked to me, I worry that there won't be anything that I can tell you that you don't already know, that you haven't already learned through struggle. And I take that as a great compliment. We should take that as a great compliment from a veteran organizer in the dynamic social movement city of Chicago, at a very important world-class university like the University of Chicago, that Eman would think, oh, do I have something to contribute, some form of political knowledge that we can learn from? But of course, we do have things to learn from Eman. And the more important point is that we are always needing to learn from social movements all around the world. We are part of something much larger than ourselves. It is unfortunately very easy to fall into a kind of parochialism and a localism. We can sometimes forget that the struggle is larger than Eugene or larger than the University of Oregon. But of course, we stand on the shoulders of many before us, activists and movements from around the world.
I've got to turn the chat back on. There it is.
If you go to Wikipedia and search the phrase student intifada, I like to tell this story. The Wikipedia article for the 2024 pro-Palestine solidarity encampments from around the world, you will see in the pictures, in the thumbnail image, is a picture of our encampments from the May Day protest at its peak. It looks beautiful. And it's alongside images from Columbia University, but also universities from Amsterdam, universities in Australia. And we know that universities around the country, in Brazil, in parts of Africa, parts of Asia, also engaged in these struggles. We must not forget, even for a second, that we are part of something much, much larger. And that gives us power, because so many students around the world have gone through things that we're going through, but have found successful ways through them to build power. So we have a responsibility to learn from them constantly. However, we should also be aware that we have something to contribute to the movements too. I'm thinking specifically here of the University of Oregon Student Workers Union, which is, to my knowledge, the only undergraduate student worker union, wall-to-wall at a public institution. There's a few others in the United States, but it was a breakthrough for the student movement, not only in this country, but worldwide. No one else has ever really done this around the world. People need to know. We have to tell them that this is another way that we can build power, that we can challenge our universities, challenge our institutions to live up to their ideals.
Build power? Wow.
So as you listen to Eman's talk this evening,
challenge our universities?
What is our responsibility, and how can we learn from each other, nationally, internationally, and how can we share our experiences, share our accumulated knowledge to build our movements into something that can ultimately win power and end genocide, end war, and make a just world for all of us. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for that generous introduction and for having me here. I really can't emphasize.
Her thing says, stop arming Israel.
Enough how energizing it's been to just spend this day with you. It's just been incredible to learn from all of you, from student organizers, to attend your rally. It's really just such an honor to be here. And, you know, speaking of this conversation we had last night, I think that as movements, we create collective knowledge. And I see myself as a movement intellectual as someone who is a vessel or mouthpiece for that knowledge. So everything I say here tonight is not, you know, it's not like if I, you know, tomorrow.
Hang on. This is exactly and precisely why the right always loses. The left is doing something, and so the thing that the left is doing is bad, and I will be on the opposite side of whatever the left is doing because whatever the left is doing is bad. Do you understand that you are very literally giving the left the ability to control you? If your reaction is left bad, anything left hates, good. That's retarded. That is a 5th grade understanding of how the world works. And that is why the left constantly wins and the right constantly loses. I don't think you are, though. I don't think you are. Because that is very literally the attitude of the vast majority of conservative right. Now, I want to be very, very clear about this. If you support Israel, I don't really care. I personally don't support Israel. If you support Israel, fine. Everyone's allowed to have their opinion. But if the reason that you support Israel is because the left doesn't, that's not a good reason. People can have plenty, like there are people, like I work with Zionists that are, you know, covering the left, and they're doing a really good job. They have reasons they're supporting Israel, and you know what? Guess what? We just don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We don't debate about it. We come together and agree on things we can agree on, and that's got to be good enough. But we have got to start getting rid of this attitude. Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And so we'll say that you're giving me the opportunity to make a point that maybe doesn't apply to you, but maybe that applies to other people. The minute that you say, I'm going to do the opposite of whatever someone I dislike does, you're giving them power to control you. And it's just like, just be better. That's all I'm saying. We don't need to be reactionary. We can come up with our own conclusions separate from what the left does. The key is understanding why the left doesn't like Israel. Whether or not the left likes Israel is actually immaterial. We want to understand why they don't like Israel. And the reason that I don't like Israel, I promise you, is very different from the reason that Imam Abdelhadi doesn't like Israel. We might agree technically on, yeah, Israel kind of sucks, whatever. But my reason for believing that is very different than hers.
I'm giving a talk on my book project, And in that case, I'm going to try to say really original things and present you with new data and such. But tonight, what I'm doing is like giving the movement back some of the collective work and synthesizing some of what we've been on a national and global level coming up with together. So this is a collective endeavor and not, anything good I say is from the movement effectively, and any mistakes are my own. So thank you for being here with me. And I want to really thank Michael Dreiling and David for initiating my visit, and to the staff of the Global Justice Program, Global Studies, Women and Gender Studies, Anthropology, Sociology, and Religious Studies departments, and especially to the students who made this possible. I really was so touched, almost to tears, to learn that this was a result of your organizing. It really makes it so special. I'm just so honored. And very special thanks to anyone who deserves to be on that list of gratitude that I don't know about or have forgotten. So I want to start tonight with a story. In the 1930s, administrators at Columbia University were following the lead of much of this country's liberal elite and forming ties with none other than the Third Reich. The Nazi regime was holding a major propaganda festival. And
we already have a Nazi sighting. Spartan over on Rumble. Thank you for the $1 Rumble rant. It is pathetic that the right is not anti-Israel. Everything should be case-by-case issue. No communist country has the same exact laws, never has the same culture. Not to go case-by-case is insane. Well, I'm not saying that I support any communist country either, because most communist countries do actually have the same laws. But hey, thanks, Spartan, for the Rumble rant. I appreciate it. Who summoned you? Who said anything to you, Amalek?
Germany in 1936 to celebrate the 550th anniversary of Heidelberg University. Columbia University President Nicholas Murray Butler sent a delegate and friendly greetings to the gathering. Murray was not alone. Harvard and Yale also sent faculty delegates to the celebration in Nazi Germany. Students revolted.
Yep, Nazis.
At Columbia, a student named Robert Burke led massive demonstrations to protest this decision, as well as the choice to invite Nazi officials to speak at Columbia's campus. You can see on the screen coverage of this protest. The university accused him of creating a disturbance. I'm sure that accusation is familiar to many people in this room. Burke was expelled and his promising career was destroyed. Columbia never apologized. The 30s were not the first time that university administrators were on the wrong side of history, and it would not be the last. They cracked down on pro-labor protests, on pro-civil rights protests, on anti-Vietnam War protests, and on protests of apartheid South Africa. Today, history repeats itself as both tragedy and farce. For 16 months now, we've seen universities exact the most brutal version of the Palestine exception to free speech. Students and faculty built beautiful solidarity encampments across the country and across the world. Universities sent in the police to drag their bodies across campus, crack their skulls, and beat them into submission. We are also experiencing a wave of repression that would have made McCarthy blush.
I fucking wish.
Tenured professor at Indiana University.
I fucking wish. I fucking wish we were experiencing a wave of oppression that would make McCarthy blush. In fact, you know what's funny? Someone asked me the other day, they were like, Karlyn, you seem to be putting together lists for this Center for Left-Wing Studies. Is this Center for Left-Wing Studies just modern day McCarthyism? And I said, God, I hope so. If I am able to get someone to fund my modern day McCarthyism through the nonprofit Center for Left-Wing Studies, that would be the crowning achievement of my life. If I was able to start a new modern day McCarthyism movement. In fact, one of the things I want to do, and actually this is like not insignificant, one of the things I'm actually trying to do is to find the video recordings for the HUAC hearings, the House on Un-American Activities Committee hearings, because those video recordings have been disappeared off the face of the earth. We just went to the Library of Congress this week to try to find those video recordings. Guess what? Those video recordings are not in the Library of Congress. They might be in the National Archive. We're checking with the National Archive. CBS might have them. We aren't exactly sure. We know these recordings exist. And one of the things I want to do, if I'm able to get people to donate money, if I need to pay licensing fees for CBS to make the HUAC committee meetings like publicly available to people, I want to raise money to pay those licensing fees to do that, because I do think we need a new era of McCarthyism in this country. If I can be just a little teeny tiny part of it in creating lists for people to utilize, I am perfectly fine with doing that. So yes, McCarthy got more right than he got wrong, and we need to bring back McCarthyism, and I think that actually sounds like a pretty great idea.
He was suspended last year, and the formal charge was over a room booking error. Maura Finkelstein, a Jewish anti-Zionist professor with tenure, was recently fired from her job at a liberal arts college. Stephen Thrasher, a tenure-track professor at Northwestern University, who ironically holds the Daniel H. Renberg Chair of Social Justice in Reporting, was suspended and subjected to an investigation for his writing on the social injustice of the genocide in Gaza. The faculty peers on his investigation committee found in his favor, so the university simply launched a new investigation. In December, New York University arrested multiple faculty members at a campus protest, and then declared them persona non grata, barring them from their workplaces. Some of them have been at NYU for decades. Students have fared even worse than faculty. Countless have been suspended, had degrees withheld, or been made to sit through interminable disciplinary procedures. At my own institution, the University of Chicago, under the watchful eye of so-called institutional neutrality, or the Chicago Principles, students have been arrested for nonviolent protests and served with disciplinary hearings. Adjunct faculty have been called in by supervisors to discuss mentions of Palestine in their classrooms. Most recently, 2 students were arrested, placed on involuntary leave, and evicted for attending a protest 2 months earlier. Democrats were swift to condemn universities for allowing students, faculty, or staff to express any solidarity with Palestine and any critique of Israel. In shameful congressional hearings in December of 2023, Democrats joined Republicans in interrogating university presidents for supposedly letting anti-Semitism run rampant. Those same presidents were actively and ruthlessly shutting down student protest. At the sham hearings, they failed to question the false equivalence between criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism. But even this kowtowing did not save their jobs. Of the 7 university presidents that testified, 5 have lost their positions. Now, with Trump at the helm, the state's attacks on pro-Palestine protesters are continuing and intensifying. Attacks to which Democrats and liberal college administrators paved the way. Trump has promised to deport international students who advocate for Palestine and has warned university administrators to comply. Though the Trump administration recently ended federal investigation into racial or ethnic discrimination in the workplace, it has just launched investigations into anti-Semitism and so-called anti-Israel bias at 5 universities. Of course, these investigations are not at all concerned with the well-being of anti-Zionist Jewish students who have been harassed and disciplined. They are only concerned with quelling pro-Palestinian protests. How do we make sense of the sheer depth and breadth of the Palestine crackdown at universities? And where do we go from here? The developments I just described are inseparable from a broader crisis in academia. The university has become a corporation. Elite universities function as hedge funds and
the university has become a corporation. Elite universities function as hedge funds. This is what I'm talking about. You guys think the left supports the universities. They don't. They don't support the university as like an institution. The only reason they utilize the university is because it gives them faculty jobs, and that gives them access to teaching, and that gives them access to resources and grants and funding and all sorts of and prestige and titles and all that stuff. And it gives them institutional power to a certain extent. They do obviously teach classes. They're the ones teaching the next generation. They're publishing research, things like that. But they do not support the university as a like functional as a system. They think it's capitalist.
Here. The developments I just described are inseparable from a broader crisis in academia. The university has become a corporation. Elite universities function as hedge funds and tax havens for billionaires and playgrounds for their children. Universities that cater to less advantaged students are increasingly squeezed for funds. The quality of education is decreasing while the cost is increasing. Students are expected to borrow from their future earnings at exorbitant interest rates. Meanwhile, the job market is not improving, and those costly degrees are giving smaller and smaller returns. Rising tuitions have not been invested in quality education. Tenure stream faculty positions, programs in the humanities and social sciences are being squeezed, while administrator salaries skyrocket and building projects bloom. Faculty are weaker than ever before and are facing increasing austerity.
Okay. Can we hinge into reality for a moment? I understand you're new here, but can we hinge into reality? You think that universities are interested in objective truth? Bro, I literally told you earlier, socialists and communists run the faculty at universities. In what universe are socialists and communists interested in objective truth? Socialists and communists are 95% of the faculty at universities. They are the ones teaching the students. They are the ones writing the papers. They are the ones reading the books. To say that the university is a system, I worked in higher education for 10 years. To say that the university is interested in objective truth is one of the most laughable statements I've ever heard in my life. No, they're not. No. I've worked for Harvard. I've worked for Dartmouth. I've done work with the University of Chicago. I consulted with the University of Chicago back in the day. There is no universe in which any of these institutions are interested in objective truth.
Donor influence on education, on disciplinary policy, and on university programming and priorities is higher than ever before. Just last week, The Intercept reported the enormous influence of a single rich Zionist parent on NYU's targeting of students. In May 2024, the Washington Post reported that a group of Zionist billionaires had pushed Mayor Eric Adams to sic the NYPD on protesting students across the city, which he happily did. Meanwhile, the extreme right is blaming university faculty and curricula for their losses in the so-called culture wars.
True.
1 in 5 young people identify as something other than straight. And the right would like you to believe that gender and sexuality studies departments are to blame.
They are to blame. They are literally to blame. They are to blame because they pump out the research that is then infused into the schools of education that then get taught to the teachers that go to teach in the K through 12 schools. Gender and sexuality departments at universities are explicitly to blame for this. It is the origin point of these batshit insane ideas. It's not just gender and sexuality departments, it's also queer studies departments. It's not even just the academic departments. Within universities, within major research universities, there are all these things called centers. Centers are a faculty member's pet project to fund whatever crazy research they want to fund. And then they go out and get a grant. See, this is why I know we can get grants for the Centers for Left-Wing Studies, because there are faculty members all over the country that get grants to fund their ridiculous centers at these universities where maybe it's not even that many people. Maybe it's the faculty member and maybe a couple student interns or a couple staff members, like low-level staff members. But from these centers that no one's ever heard of, they're pumping out all of this queer studies research, all of this queer Marxist research, and then it goes into the ecosystem, and then it gets diffused down from there. And so that's actually one of the things we're going to be doing with the Center for Left-Wing Studies is monitoring that type of stuff that's coming out of universities so that we know what's coming next and we know who's really pushing these ideas.
If only, right? If only I had that much influence on my students, truly. I'm like, really? Okay. In Florida, a Trump supporter decried a textbook for simply stating the fact that a land named Palestine existed before Israel was created. Now, lawmakers are scouring hundreds of textbooks to purge them of so-called anti-Israel bias.
Yeah,
the
that's
examples
stupid.
are too long and too exhausting to list here. The problem is
that is stupid. That people on the right are spending any time at all trying to purge anti-Israel sentiment from textbooks. That's so fucking dumb. Is it true a lot of these communists don't believe Zohar Mandami isn't far left enough, even though he wants breadlines? Well, he doesn't want breadlines. Don't. This is, again, you're going to have to rid yourself of these bad conservative bullshit habits that you've picked up from somewhere to say Zohar Mandami wants breadlines. No, he doesn't. We don't play this fucking game here. It doesn't impress me at all. But what I would recommend for you to do is go back and watch last week's episode of Socialism Saturday, because we literally watched presentations from two different groups, the Denver Communists and the Revolutionary Communists of America, talking about Zohar Mandami. And yes, it is true that they think he's not far left enough. It is true they think he's going to become a bourgeois capitalist as soon as he becomes mayor. It is true that they believe that Zohar Mandami has already sold them out by running an election in the first place, because the radical revolutionary far left doesn't believe in elections. They don't believe elections are going to win what they want. They believe the elections are a tool of the bourgeois capitalist class, not of the revolutionary far left. And so, yes, it is true that many socialists and communists, the revolutionary ones, do not support him and don't think he's actually going to do anything.
instead of protecting academics or academia, administrators are rushing to comply, handing their workers and curricula to the right on a platter. If the crisis over Palestine reflects the state of the university reflects the broader crisis in American society, where the unchecked power of the ruling elite grows day by day at the expense of everyone else and at the expense of the institutions that have been key to the functioning of this society. So what next? Those of us who believe in the power and promise of the university, and I count myself among them, have two options. The first is to erect an image of a glorious past to chase, one where the American Academy was once a place for equality and justice, for freedom of academic thought, of expression, and of speech. We can project onto the past a corrective of American academia that defines it by its best tendencies and ignores its worst impulses. It's tempting. Nostalgia is a really powerful tool. But I will argue that this sets us up for a losing battle. It's the same framework of liberal nostalgia that lost an election in November, handing this country into an even more uncertain and even more terrifying future than we were already facing. Academia's past has not been glorious, just as America's past has not been glorious, just as the so-called liberal world order has not been glorious. All three have been built on the blood and sweat of those deemed disposable by racial capitalism. All three have reflected, above all else, the interests of power. What is the ivory tower without the native land on which it was built? Without the enslaved people who built it? Without the underpaid brown and black workers who still maintain it? What would our universities be without the communities our predecessors and colleagues have experimented on, theorized, then discarded? If you walk just 3 minutes east of my office at the University of Chicago, you can hang out in Milton Friedman Hall and celebrate a man who made it his business to advise military juntas as they slaughtered, disappeared, and subjugated their populations from Latin America to East Asia. You may be thinking, this is a selective and unfair characterization of the American Academy.
Dang.
Some of you are shaking your head. I see you, comrade. You may chide me for omitting the many advances to society made within these halls, the awesome tomes of knowledge and progress, and even the radiating political dissonance that has at times spread from academia to society. You're right, but those achievements don't reflect the core impulses of academia. They've happened despite it. They reflect the creativity and struggle of people who take the cracks of these institutions of power and plant seeds within them. Academic freedom, freedom of speech, and all the rest of what we prize about academia have often solidified in the context of intensive struggle. How many times, to give a quick example, have we seen universities memorialize the very protesters their predecessors had criminalized and brutalized? How many departments and disciplines were born of intensive student and faculty activism? If we accept that the best things that happen at universities often emerge from the margins, not the core, this brings me to the second framework before us. Instead of nostalgia for a past version of the university that never existed, Let us embrace the contradictions of this establishment. The university is a liberal elite institution of power and therefore exhibits all the same contradictions and oppressions of the temporal and spatial context in which it is embedded.
So again, she's saying this is an institution that is a liberal institution. And remember, socialists are not liberals. Socialists hate liberalism. The university is a liberal institution that reinforces all of these oppressions. And of course, she's talking about the oppressions of capitalism. Do they believe everything bad in the world that has happened and will ever happen is essentially due from capitalism? Yes. Every single thing. Every bad thing that has ever happened in the world or will ever happen in the world is a result of capitalism. Every single oppression is the result of capitalism. Every single crisis we have is because of capitalism. The only way to solve any problem in the country is to abolish capitalism. Once we abolish capitalism, all problems will be solved. That is essentially what they believe. Thanks for asking.
It's not a special citadel of freedom. It's rather another institution in a society with a fundamental ambivalence towards freedom and a suspicion of those who seek
Yo, two ladies
like
in
most
with the
other
second one.
institutions, the university has the potential
you.
to either be liberatory or oppressive.
Guys, come on, don't let two ladies do all the work. We now have we need 69 more dollars. Look at that. What a golden opportunity for someone to make a $69 gift. I'm just saying, like, you might never have this opportunity again to make a $69 gift and put us over goal if you're, you know.
The first framework of nostalgia would have us chasing after an ever-shifting ideological edifice.
Yeah.
That university.
So Nick, I do appreciate the transcripts. I'm not necessarily interested in the transcripts. I'm interested in the video or the audio. So that's what we're trying to locate. But I do appreciate that we have that. It's good that we have that. You know, we'll take it. It's certainly something that we'll make public out there. But I don't think it's useful to us for us to read thousands of pages. I'm looking for video or audio. That is actually the goal.
The administrators have never been faithful to. It would have us chasing the doublespeak. Here we are told the core values are freedom of expression, but then our students are arrested for protesting. We're told the university is politically neutral, but even the most cursory search shows the deep material ties between that institution and fossil fuel industry, weapons manufacturing, and the genocidal Israeli regime.
Joseph, thank you for the $10 gift via
we are told there are no safe
Cash App.
spaces until its privileged students
Thank
can deny
you.
them. When we chase the doublespeak, we find ourselves in a never-ending loop. We point out the contradictions between the university's stated ideals and its conduct. Stop arresting our students. Stop evicting them.
Suzanne.
Stop firing staff. Stop interrogating our most vulnerable teachers. Stop breaking your promises to students. We politely ask for an alignment between actions and values, and the alignment never comes. Meanwhile, we continue to lose power as faculty, as students, and as staff. The wheels of neoliberalism, as ever, march forward, as we, bereft, erect ever more altars to a fictional past of freedom.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We could let go of the idea that the university exists as a suspended reality outside of capitalism. That it's one.
We could let go of the goal that the university exists as a suspended reality outside of capitalism. Again, they're flat out saying the university is a capitalist institution.
Magic castle where reason and knowledge
Don't keep it. Thank
in a society
you.
otherwise run by profit.
Appreciate it.
We could instead.
Let's listen to that again. Rewind. There we go.
We could let go of the idea that the university exists as a suspended reality outside of capitalism. That it's one magic castle where reason and knowledge triumph in a society otherwise run by profit.
Hang on. Someone on Rumble has just sent me a link saying the McCarthy hearings are on YouTube. The McCarthy hearings are not on YouTube. Oh. Hang on a second. Why are you sending me a weird link? George Rockwell, why are you sending me a weird link? Because that does not look like a YouTube link to me, and I want to know why you're sending me a weird link. Can you just send me the YouTube link directly? Thank you.
We could instead recognize that the university is a structure of power and a site of political struggle. We can tune into its political economic levers. We can recognize ourselves as not actors outside of capitalism, but first and foremost as workers. We can recognize top-level university administrators not as benign stewards, but as bosses, driven by...
This is exactly what I talked about before. Okay, thank you, George. I appreciate that. Let me just pull this up. No, so, okay, George, I know what this is. Okay, George, you just sent me a documentary about the Army McCarthy hearings, which I appreciate because it's a really hard documentary to find. But I will tell you, we've watched this documentary before. I'm not looking for the Army McCarthy hearings. It's actually really interesting, and maybe people should definitely watch it, and I appreciate you sharing it. I'm going to bookmark that. I'm not looking for the Army McCarthy hearings. I'm looking for the House on Un-American Activities Committee hearings. But the Army McCarthy hearings are interesting because you basically see that Joseph McCarthy was like the Donald Trump of his day. The charges against him were so trumped up, for lack of a better term. It's actually a really interesting thing to watch. But I appreciate you sending that along, because it is actually a pretty difficult thing to find. But the Army McCarthy hearings are different than the HUAC committee hearings, which I used to get them confused as well in my head, and then I learned. So I appreciate that. Mitchell, thank you for the $5. Okay, listen again. She's basically saying, so if the university is a capitalist ecosystem, right? What Imam is basically saying is that faculty members and students have to consider themselves to be the proletariat, and the administration are the oppressors. The administration are the bourgeois oppressors. And that's what I explained earlier when I said the left does control the faculty and like the student body through the faculty at the universities, but the administrators are not leftists. The administrators are not communists. The administrators are evil capitalists to them. And, you could make the argument that, many administrators come out of the faculty, and while that's true, there is a I don't know how many of you have ever worked in higher education. I worked in higher education on the administration side. Every single college I've worked at several colleges. I've done consulting with many, many, many colleges. The faculty is constantly at war with the administration, and it doesn't even matter who the person is. It doesn't even matter what role they have. It doesn't matter if the faculty has ever talked to this person. I cannot tell you how many screaming matches I got into with faculty when I would go to a meeting, and I know you guys think that I'm always the first person to yell, but I would go to a meeting with faculty members that I had literally never met before, and I would try to present them something to say, here's what we're doing and here's why we're going to try to do it. And they would just start yelling at me out of nowhere. And this happened at several different universities that I worked at. I'm not even kidding. And I'm not the only one this stuff happens to. Like, no one on the administration side actually wants to meet with the faculty because the faculty is just notoriously insane when it comes to the administration. And again, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how nice to them you are. It doesn't matter all the things you try to do for that. It just doesn't fucking matter. They hate you. They hate you on site. They hate you because you are part of the administration. And now we know why, because they consider the administration to be the bourgeois capitalist class, and they are the oppressed. Jan, thank you. Can't figure out how to do 10 on my phone, but here's to the goal. Keep up the amazing work. Hey, thank you. We're really close to that goal, aren't we? $9 away from the goal. Thank you to everyone who contributed.
We could instead recognize that the university is a structure of power and a site of political struggle. We can tune into its political economic levers. We can recognize ourselves as not actors outside of capitalism, but first and foremost as workers. We can recognize top-level university administrators not as benign stewards, but as bosses, driven by concrete material interests. At the University of Chicago, administrators immediately halted all research after Trump's illegal executive order freezing federal aid. They have told us that if ICE visits campus, they will be sent to the UCPD, a notorious institution. And the UCPD happily told us that they are a law enforcement agency and would comply with all law enforcement agencies. These people will not protect us. And they are still operating under the falsehood that cooperating will save them.
Gasmar!
It won't.
Thank you.
Rather than beg at their doors, we can do what workers who want to protect themselves have always done. Build power, recognize leverage where it exists, and exercise it to improve our working conditions. As we often chant on the streets, who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. You may ask, why then bother with the university at all? Why organize here in the first place? I'll offer 3 reasons. First, the university is a place of congregation, which are increasingly rare in American society. There was a time when Americans were much more connected to each other through voluntary associations, churches, neighborhood organizations, libraries, trade unions, and even general non-commodified public spaces like parks.
Vincenzo.
Many of these institutions have either been destroyed by neoliberalism.
I'm going to call you Vince. Thank you, Vince, for the Cash App. I appreciate that.
Liberalization and austerity, think, for example, of the attack on public libraries, or have fallen out of favor. Church attendance, for example, has declined precipitously. Universities remain one of the few institutions that tie together thousands of people, and they're increasingly important for the life course as more and more people seek university educations. Second, these are places where we invest enormous amounts of energy and time. They would not exist without us. They are ours. We deserve to have them serve us back. They are worth fighting for insofar as our time and energy is worth fighting for. Third, many universities function effectively as mini governance structures. The University of Chicago, and I apologize, I keep giving this example, but that's where I live my life, is the largest employer in the city of Chicago. For tens of thousands of people in the city, it is also a healthcare provider, a landlord, and even a police force.
Oh, that's you, Salvador.
And yet, who rules
Thank
the city,
you.
the University of Chicago? The institution is run by an unelected board of trustees, composed primarily of ultra-wealthy financiers.
Listen to those snaps. Listen to those snaps.
The university's main benefactor, trustee David Rubenstein, single-handedly saved a tax break loophole that has saved billionaires like him from paying millions in taxes, just to give you an idea. My point is that universities function as undemocratic governance structures who rule over tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives without any methods of accountability in place. As students, faculty, and staff, as the people without whom universities cannot exist, although I really think that administrators would love it if they could have a university without students or faculty. Like, can we just have the hedge fund? That would be We are uniquely positioned to wage the political struggle within universities. I hope that I've convinced you that any hope of organizing within the university needs to start by treating it as a site of political struggle, and that while recognizing its imperfections, it's still a worthy place to struggle for and through. So then how do we wage this struggle? I want to answer this question by offering some general principles and applying them to the Palestine solidarity movement. I'm going to phrase them as contentions. This is a photo of your beautiful encampment. It was amazing to learn that you had the longest uninterrupted encampment in the wave. We had 9 days in it. Oh, those were a long 9 days of my life. I slept so hard after. The first contention is that movements need multiple flanks, and I would add to that a division of labor. We talked about this at lunch with a few of you. Successful social movements, both in the US and abroad, have often had multiple flanks: radical, progressive, and moderate. Radicals use disruption and direct action to impose costs and push the horizons of demands. They remind us always of the ideal world we are working towards, the broadest aspirations of the movement, even if those aspirations seem far off. Without a radical wing, we risk confusing short-term progress for the sum of our liberatory demands. At the same time, the work of progress sometimes is incremental. Moderates work on securing a foot in the door for the cause and leverage institutional positions to make those incremental changes. Progressives often liaise and negotiate between the two groups. I want to just clarify for a second that I'm not actually arguing for an ideological distinction here. I'm arguing for a distinction in action. Many people who are positioned to play the role of a progressive or a moderate may have totally radical politics, but because of their structural position, right, in the movement, they should be playing the role of the moderate. Students, and I think I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I look forward to questions. Students have the strategic advantage to be the radical front of the movement. And I want to say that within student movements, there's also different flanks often, and that's totally okay too. But usually the radical flank is held by students. And that's because students are only on campus temporarily, generally. They don't have to manage decades-long relationships with colleagues and administrators. They often have fewer work and family obligations, although lots of work obligations I'm acknowledging, and therefore have more time and can take on higher risks. In the university's corporate model, they are the consumers and therefore hold power as a collective that administrators cannot simply eliminate. Since October, though, faculty and staff for Justice in Palestine chapters have popped up across university campuses. These chapters were often started to defend students from administrator and police attacks, but I'm happy to say that faculty and staff have also started organizing in their own right, thinking through what strategic advantages they can leverage, whether those are institutional knowledge, long-term relationships with administrators, or their very labor. While students and faculty should work in close coalition, in my view, campuses that have had separate organizations for student and faculty have been more successful. The multiple flank strategy recognizes that different actors have different roles to play depending on their strengths and vulnerabilities within the system. Sometimes students want to take more radical action than faculty can sign on to, at least openly.
Why does the left hate prisons? For the same reason, Pete, that the left hates the police. The left believes the police are the managers of private property. They believe that the police's only job is to basically protect the ownership of private property of the bourgeois or the wealthy. And so the reason they hate prisons and the prison industrial complex is because they are a manifestation of the police. They don't believe that prisons are like a just thing. They believe that if capitalism didn't exist, then there wouldn't be a need for these prisons. They also have a problem with the for-profit prison model, I think, obviously, for many obvious reasons, although the for-profit prison model does kind of suck. But that's basically why, is they believe that the police and the prisons are descendants of slave catchers, and that is of course a manifestation of capitalism because they believe that slavery was a capitalist institution, and so that is generally speaking why. Alex, only literal retards think these people are liberals or libtards. We don't even use the word libtard on this channel. It's a low IQ conservative bullshit word. These are not liberals. These people hate liberals. Socialists and communists hate liberals. They shit on them all the time. She has already shit on liberals in this presentation. If you were listening to the presentation, you would have heard her call the university the liberal institution. That wasn't a compliment. So no, these are not libtards.
Having separate organizations allows us to come together when it makes sense and play the role of allies for each other when that makes sense. Not being directly implicated in every single action makes faculty less likely to attempt to curb students' radical impulses. Meanwhile, faculty can either reject or work through the system depending on the specific goal of a campaign. Faculty are often well-positioned.
So what she's saying is essentially this is actually really important in terms of like understanding leftist strategy. What she's saying is it's advantageous for us to have the students be the leads of this movement because then faculty members get plausible deniability when students do things. No, it's not the same difference, Alex. No, it's not. 1 in the chat if Alex is correct and liberals and communists are the same thing. 2 in the chat if Alex is a fucking retard that needs to shut the fuck up and listen. Because if he just shuts the fuck up and listens for probably about 5 minutes, he's going to hear Imam Abdelhadi say she doesn't like liberals, which she's actually already said in this presentation. And had Alex just shut the fuck up from the beginning and listened, he would have heard her say that she doesn't like liberals. So looks like you got a lot of 2s there in the chat, Alex. This isn't just me. Literally everyone who watches the left knows that there is a huge difference between liberals and communists. Only retards think that liberals and communists are the same thing. Don't be a fucking retard.
function as the moderate and progressive wings of the movement. For example, I got the sense that this has happened here as well. Our students secured some promises from the administration as a result of the encampment. None of those were met. And it's taken faculty, right? And the students didn't understand the structure of how
here it is. Here's the conservative meltdown. You're just as terrible as them. What's wrong with you? You people are all so stupid. This is our typical conservative hissy fit. You're just as dumb as the communists. Alex, I'm pretty sure you're the one crying, moron. And now we are ridding ourselves of you because you're not smart enough to be here. Goodbye. That's how we handle conservatives, retards in the chat, guys. Like, this is why we don't allow this shit. Because as soon as you try to, this is why we stop and we correct people when they make a mistake like that. Listen, there was a guy in here earlier, Allah, who he made a mistake. We stopped, we corrected him, and then he stuck around and he continued to listen. He didn't have a hissy fit meltdown in the chat. Sometimes when you correct people, they listen and then they become like good students of this type of stuff. Sometimes when you have retards like that Alex person, they have a massive hissy fit meltdown and they start crying and they don't want to hear it. And that is the IQ test. That is the IQ test for this channel. We do not allow low IQ retards here. We only allow people who are actually interested in the truth.
How do you even get to the administrator? Like, how do you even get the provost to talk to you, right? And this was where faculty could come in. You know, faculty have structures to access these things. And we had to learn a lot, actually, about the structure. Like, part of it was a rude awakening of being like, how does...
If you stick around after you get a dressing down, then you have passed the hazing ritual. We need to know, listen, the hazing ritual is like it is actually, it's not just me being a bitch on the internet, although I do enjoy being a bitch on the internet. But the thing of it is the hazing ritual has a purpose. We need to know if you're actually going to listen and not have a hissy fit meltdown every single time you hear something that you don't like. Also, I am way nicer than the left is. So although I may yell at people and although I may give people a good dressing down when they damn well deserve it because they're being a retard, I'm actually a lot nicer than the left is in that I actually do want people to learn. But the thing is, I'm not going to coddle the feelings of morons, and I'm not going to coddle the feelings of people who just are in here to hear themselves talk and they aren't actually listening. I'm not going to coddle NPCs who get all their information from the TV. It is a giant waste of time. And I learned a long time ago that if I have a chat filled with people who are literally just regurgitating bullshit conservative talking points, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work on any level. It doesn't create the type of environment that allows us to actually research this material. It doesn't it doesn't also create a nice environment for everyone else. Believe me, everyone else that sticks around, they love seeing me dress down people as much as they like the content. So that's why there is actually a real purpose to it. You got to go do some other stuff. All right. Well, take care. We'll see you soon. But it's not just me being mean. I am being mean with a purpose. It is a filtering mechanism.
How does this work? What is this? But we've all been learning the system and pushing for those changes. Those wins were only possible through the radical action of creating an encampment, right? But bringing them home, actualizing them.
It's tough love. Exactly. It's tough love.
All this institutional knowledge and working, quote unquote, within the system that faculty were well positioned to do. Similarly, with disciplinary hearings,
it is tough love.
Pour over processes. They had the institutional knowledge to know when a hearing was being run the way it's usually run versus when it was, suddenly and arbitrarily changed. We had law professors, poring over students' cases. We had faculty reading every student's sort of response to a disciplinary inquiry. We had faculty going with students to disciplinary hearings as support systems. I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to move on to the next one. Keep it moving. The second contention I'll make is that we need to elevate the material in our organizing. So much of the history of the Palestine Solidarity movement on US campuses was focused on the symbolic. Students working alone and lacking leverage did enormous amounts of political education, using spectacle to draw attention to the cause. When I was a student at the University of Michigan, for example, in the late aughts and early 10s, we did a series of walkouts that successfully shut down a speaking tour by Israeli generals. Die-ins, sit-ins, and campus-wide votes for divestment and sanctions have been mainstays of Palestine work at universities. These have been and continue to be incredibly important for raising awareness. But campus divestment votes and symbolic actions did not usually change material conditions for Palestinians. Trustees and administrators could simply shrug and move on. To take our organizing to the next level, we need to make continuing support for genocide materially costly for universities. It should not be possible to maintain business as usual if you are investing in death. The good news is we've already begun doing this work. Last spring, we saw students inflict a material cost on the function of the university through the encampments. The camps were impossible to ignore, caused enormous headaches for administrators, and cost money and bad publicity. They helped connect university-based organizers to their broader cities and communities, strengthening the movement. They blended the material with the ideological in that they also gave us a glimpse of what life might be like if universities were truly for the people. They were a beautiful contrast to the securitized, commodified, and privatized version of knowledge production and transmission that usually reigns over campus. But the encampments alone could not be a long-term strategy.
Listen to what she said. Listen to what she said specifically. Let me put the captions back on. Listen to this again. She's going to say several words that mean capitalism.
They were a beautiful contrast to the securitized, commodified, and privatized version of knowledge production.
The protests were a beautiful contrast to the securitized, commodified, privatized version of knowledge production. That's 3 different words that all mean capitalism. Do you guys understand why? Securitized is about surveillance. The left is very against surveillance. Surveillance, of course, is a function of capitalism. It's a function of the oppressors. It's a function of the police. Commodified, a commodity. I mean, that's very a capitalist term, right? You're producing a commodity. You're producing a commodity that you sell to the world at the expense of the people, at the expense of the workers. Privatized means that it's only available to some. It's not available to everyone. The left's definition of capitalism is private property ownership, which means that you have property that is exclusively for your use, like your home, your land, apartments, things like that. And that you are excluding other people from that. So securitized, commoditized, privatized, 3 different words that means capitalism. Does everyone understand? Doesn't that book talk about surveillance against anti-communists? Well, it probably does, but remember, they're not talking about, when they're saying surveillance, they're talking about the police. They're talking about the capitalist government. They're talking about, you know, the intelligence agencies. These are all functions of capitalism. When they do surveillance, it's not capitalist surveillance. So that's the difference to them.
And transmission that usually reigns over campus. But the encampments alone could not be a long-term strategy because they were very costly.
Yes, it's good surveillance,
in terms
exactly.
of time and energy. Lots of knowing.
Exactly.
I feel you. Again, I don't know how you kept yours going for. How long was it? It was like, oh my, 4 weeks? Heroes, actual heroes. Thank you. In tandem with periodic actions like these, ideally student-led, we need deep organizing that maps the structures of the university, studies its power systems, builds our own power, and thinks through how to leverage it.
Look at this.
We need to think in the long term.
She's actually talking about doing studies to map how the university organizes so that they can fight the university from within.
What would it look like to envision a general strike over divestment? What would it take to get there? As a former union organizer, I know that it takes years to build toward a successful strike. Sadly, it can't simply happen through a call on Instagram. No shade. What steps can, okay, a little shade. What steps can we take along the way to a strike? Who are our allies? Where are we strongest? Where are we weakest? We need not reinvent the wheel. The labor movement has developed the tools and methods by which we can map the possibilities for organizing a large workplace. How can we adapt them to the university? At a place like the University of Oregon, you are so far ahead of the curve. I mean, it's incredible, really. You already have unionized workers across every segment of your institution, including
The union.
undergrads. I had never even realized there were unionized undergrads anywhere.
So they've unionized the grad. So we've been talking a lot lately about how the unions are intimately involved in leftist organizing. The United Auto Workers in particular is like the student union, where there is actually, and this might sound bizarre because it's called the United Auto Workers, but there is actually like a contingent within the United Auto Workers that is specifically for graduate students. There's also unions specifically for faculty. And now we're finding out that the University of Oregon has actually had a union for undergraduate students. They're not fighting for workplace rights. They're not they are using the unions to push a extremely far left political ideology. The unions are just an organizing tool of the far left. This is why, I mean, I do think one of the most effective things the Trump administration could do would be to hold McCarthy-style congressional hearings into the political organizing activities of the unions, because you're going to find that this is what it is. I do not know anything about the UFCW, but there are millions of unions out there.
So that is just incredible.
Incredible.
I imagine that institutions like UO will lead the way as workers across other universities attempt to similarly build power. At a place like this, the question becomes, how do we build unions that function not just as administrative, but as political units?
Oh, yeah?
We have to resurrect the legacy of the union as a hub of worker life and as a political home.
There it is.
We have to ask our colleagues to go from defense to offense. We will never compromise our way out of increasing austerity. Pretend neutrality and silence will not protect us. It did not protect us during the McCarthy era, and it won't protect us during the Trump era.
Well, here's the thing, though. This is no longer going to work. We are never going to have hearings again where it's going to be effective to say, are you now, or are you ever have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? The reason it's not going to work is the left. There is no Communist Party on the left. There's no Communist Party. There is the Communist Party USA, which there basically has no members at this point. Like, no, it's completely irrelevant. It's why we don't even talk about it. But there is no Communist Party on the left. What there is a massive amount of decentralized organizations. That's why we're working on the Mapping the Modern Left project, to actually map the thousands of decentralized organizations. And very few of those organizations have communist or socialist in the title. So no. The Democratic Socialists are not the most far left. So the Democratic Socialists work within the electoral system. So that's not going to work either. If you guys want to round up every member of the Democratic Socialists, congratulations, you just created thousands of more revolutionary communists who are far crazier than the Democratic Socialists ever have been or ever will be. So that's not going to work, and that's a retarded conservative take because you don't understand the different types of organizations on the left. So there is no way to have any sort of question or any sort of bill that says this is the Communist Party, because it doesn't exist like that. The left learned from the McCarthy era. Unlike the right, the left actually learns things when their political adversaries do things, and then they change the way they organized. And the way the left changed the way they organized after the McCarthy hearings, or the HUAC hearings rather, is that there is no central organization on the left anymore. It is massively decentralized across every single state. Thousands and thousands of different groups. There are even the national organizations, there are probably thousands of those. And then there are state level and local level groups under those. There are many leftist organizations are local organizations. They're not even national organizations. They're organizations that you've never even heard of. So, and almost all of them are far more dangerous than the Democratic Socialists of America.
My third and final contention is more like a reminder. In the Palestine solidarity movement, we often say, we're not liberating Palestine, Palestine is liberating us. Since the genocidal assault on Gaza began in fall of 2023, Palestine has exposed how little power we actually have in our institutions, how little public opinion in the US matters for foreign policy, how willing our bosses are to discard us or send in the police to attack us. We have seen the folly of assuming we are safe in these spaces or that they will function according to their stated ideals. The lesson has been, to survive, we need power. To have power, we need to build it together. In this moment of horror, I actually have a lot of hope. I saw people organize over the last 16 months who had never organized before in their lives. At one meeting, a senior colleague who's been at my university for 2 decades turned to me and said, I didn't know it could be like this. By like this, she meant that we could come together, faculty and staff and students, to demand something different. Many of us know more of our colleagues now than we did over years at our workplaces. Colleagues across different professional levels and from different corners of the institution. People we may have otherwise never met.
Oh, wow. So what I'm hearing is that the Trump administration's attacks on the pro-Palestine protesters completely radicalized the left, and now they're actually more organized than ever within the university ranks because they had to, and they actually were able to recruit and radicalize more people. Guys, the Streisand effect isn't just a thing that exists on social media when someone gets canceled. The Streisand effect exists on the far left too, and this is something that the right never factors into their equations. The Trump administration going after pro-Palestine protesters was one of the biggest unforced errors that they've ever made in terms of radicalizing the far left. Now, you could also argue Trump saying that the Epstein files were a Democratic hoax were also an unforced error, and that's true. But Trump saying the Epstein files are a Democratic hoax didn't radicalize the far left. What radicalized the left and made more people get involved in the left was Trump deporting pro-Palestine protesters. And Trump completely lost that battle. It was a complete and colossal failure. And guess what? That complete and colossal failure brought all the faculty and the students together at universities and gave them a mission. And maybe something else would have given them that mission. That's fine. But it's like, these are the things that the right doesn't even consider in their thought process. Like, is this totally going to Streisand affect the left? Is this actually going to create more leftist activism and not less? In this case, it absolutely created more leftist activism and created a group of martyrs that they're going to be able to use for years and years and years.
We have eaten together, plotted together, sang together, laughed together, sobbed together, faced the police together. Israel's brutality and the university's repression threw us into each other's arms, and we are not going to let go. At my own university, there is a recent effort to restart and empower our chapter of the American Association of University Presidents.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, it's so exciting. It's the closest thing we have to a union. Many of the people leading this charge had never organized before joining the newly created FSJP little over a year ago. Palestine has opened up the horizons of possibilities on US campuses and in US society in general. We are imagining and demanding more than just the boycott, divestment, and sanctions that Palestinians have asked of us. We are demanding a different type of workplace entirely, one that listens to us, protects us, serves us, aligns with our values. We are, in short, demanding the university. The path ahead is long, but I fully believe we have the people power to do it. With Trump and the far right at the gates, we truly have nothing to lose but our dreams. Thank you.
So she has just given a talk that is about organizing students and faculty to proactively dismantle the capitalist university. And she's getting a standing ovation from everyone in the room. I just really want people to think about this. Her talk was about dismantling the university and using the university resources to do that. Standing ovation from everyone in the room because they all agree with her. And now we're moving into Q&A, which is always the best part.
You're so kind. As an academic, I don't have any encores. I just I don't want to talk. Sorry, awkward.
Why don't you stay here?
Okay. One more talk.
And by the way, and by the way, the University of Oregon probably paid to fly her out there, is paying to put her up in a hotel, and probably paid some sort of speaking fee. It was probably a nominal speaking fee, which probably wasn't anything crazy. But like the University of Oregon actually paid for this. For her to come to campus to give a talk about dismantling the University of Oregon from the inside.
The Q&A, he's got little cards on every table. There's some white cards, pen, pencil. If you could just go ahead and fill out any questions you have, come up here.
Yep, you're noticing that a lot of people in the crowd look completely normal and not all pink-haired, crazy, tattooed people with stupid haircuts. Yeah, that's typically the case. Well, it is a taxpayer-funded. Well, University of Oregon is a public university, so another great point. Yeah, the University of Oregon is a taxpayer-funded university.
Hold them up, yes. Sophia, Ellie, or Sophia's back here. One of us will grab them. If you've got questions, take a minute to do this. And the first one we'll get, let's see here. And we'll begin this. You're going to keep writing, even as you pick off a response to each of these. Okay, so you want me to read these to you? You're going to be able to read these.
All right, we're gonna fast forward. Okay.
We run out of time.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone collecting questions as well. That's I appreciate you. And the folks who passed out pens and papers, I appreciate your work. So the first question says, thank you for being here. You're welcome. My question is the following. A few days ago, we had two criminals talking about what to do with Gaza. We had a powerful enemy with something worldwide. Based on your experience, how do we make the pro-Palestine movement internationally powerful? I think this is a really good question, and I actually weirdly have a kind of and maybe counterintuitive answer, which is that we actually need to focus on the local. So just like there's a division of labor within our movements on campus and within
We need
our
to focus on the
movements in
local.
US,
Wow.
I think that
just
we have
like
to
what I
think
said
about
earlier.
what is our role given our position in the international movement? And I think, I've seen a little bit of confusion about this over the last 16 months as people have rightfully been reading Palestinian scholars and Palestinian movement theorists in Palestine. And I love that that's happening.
It's not about Gaza at all in any way.
It's also important that
Correct.
someone living in the West Bank or someone living in Gaza has
not
a
about
role to
Gaza.
play, right?
Never
our
has
role is
been.
that we are in the heart of U.S. empire, and we are in the country that most supports the assault on Palestinian life, without whom the expropriation of Palestinian land, the mass slaughter of Palestinians would not be possible without U.S. support. So we have a special role to play here, and I think that the way to think about the sort of international dimension is to reclaim that we are part of an international legacy. So a lot of the movements in the 60s and 70s that a lot of us draw inspiration from they saw their work as part of a global liberationist struggle, as not necessarily that different from those fighting against colonialism in different places. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to have the same exact tasks, right? But I think seeing that is really important, because what we've seen, one of the failures, I think, of liberalism is that it maintains the exceptionalism of the US and the exceptionalism of US empire. As soon as Trump and Netanyahu made this announcement, the discourse I was seeing online was Harris voters saying, well, you deserve it because
Harris
you
voters
stayed home, or you didn't vote for Harris, or you picked and they're saying this to like Arabs and Muslims, which are like, you need to decide, are we important enough that you should have tried to win us in the campaign, or are we can't both have been not important so that you didn't have to cater to us and somehow we lost you the election. Like that doesn't make sense. But also, if every single Muslim, first of all, both the majority of Muslims and Arabs did vote for Harris. But even if every single one of them had voted for Harris, you still would have lost that election. And so it is a liberal impulse to maintain but ultimately, and the most important part of this is you wouldn't talk to someone who you thought was a human being like that. You wouldn't say to them, you deserve your mass slaughter because I think you made a bad choice in an election. You deserve for your family to die en masse. That means that you don't believe in our humanity. And that's the problem with the sort of like Western liberal framework, is that it retains the same structures of tiered humanity that have brought us to this moment, right? And so we have to reject that ideologically, even if our work is specific to what we're doing here in the US. I don't know if I answered that question, but there are a lot of questions. Okay, exciting. Okay, what's the next one? Because this one looks short. How can alumni productively assist in campus activism? I love this question. I think alumni have a huge role to play. First of all, they have a lot of institutional memory. Second of all, administrators are so scared of losing alumni. So like withdrawing funds and having like alumni write into administrators en masse, I think is really important. I think coordinating with the alumni at UChicago are currently helping us with a massive research effort where we're looking into UChicago's investments and who the hell this board of trustees is that rules our lives. So they have...
The alumni at the University of Chicago are helping the faculty members to research the administration at the University of Chicago.
From like a joint research committee with FSJP. And then of course, like turnout to events and such. But I think they're a crucial part of the movement because the university structure sees alumni as an important donor base and as an important kind of group of people. And so, yeah, there's a lot that can be done. And I think it should be done in coalition with faculty and staff.
Oh, excellent. It's just more here. You have a lot here.
Oh my gosh. I hope this is a good sign. As a minority in academics, how did you push past all the people who opposed you and your work to get to a place where people would listen to you? I find it hard to talk about any organizing I do with people like my advisor because I'm worried about repercussions for my career. First of all, I'm really sorry that's happening to you, whoever wrote that question. I like your relationship with your advisor, like it's such an important relationship, and it's sad and hard that you don't feel safe in that relationship. And I wish things were different. So I just wanted to take a moment to validate that. I think I'm always torn when I get questions like this because there's a version of me that wants to advise you for the world as I think it should be. And there's a version of me that feels compelled to advise you for the world as I think it is. So here's the two. The world should be such that you can be all of yourselves, right? And that you should be feeling totally safe with your advisor, and there should be no repercussions to your activism. So let me just validate that for a second. The world as it is such that academia is incredibly competitive, it's incredibly scarce, and there are sometimes repercussions. And I just want to say that we are not all well positioned to do all the things at the same time. I have two close mentors from grad school, and one of them I'm pretty sure is a Zionist. I never talked to her about it. I never brought up Palestine. I wore my Palestine stuff. To her credit, she didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. We have played this game for literally a decade and a half. Okay. I think it's okay that as I was going through grad school, this is not the fight I picked with this person. I still did my organizing. I fought for BDS in my union. I went out to rallies. I was doing my work. But that was not the place to do that work. And it's okay to make those choices. Like you don't have to be, you can be strategic about where you put your energy and your activism such that it benefits the movement and doesn't destroy your life. Because we need you. Like we want you to get a job. We want you to publish. We want you to get a job. We want you to get to the other side. So we need more of you here, you know? And so I don't like try to fight that impulse that's like, I need to burn it down in every single room. And this is coming from me, someone who, but part of it is that I don't think that I would have had the platform that I have if I didn't play the game for a while, right? Like if I didn't put my head down and do solid, rigorous mainstream sociology in mainstream academic journals that I believed in. I wasn't saying anything I didn't believe in, right? But like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have gotten the job. I wouldn't have gotten like, so I think.
Well, that's actually a really good point that I just want to like build off of. And it's a really important point for people to think about. You have to understand the system if you're going to break the rules of the system. And so what Imam Abdelhadi just said is, listen, I wouldn't have this faculty job at the University of Chicago had I not kept my head down and did the normie academic research and publish in the journals and do all the things I should have done. I'm in a position to be able to break the system because I played by the rules of the system and I advanced myself within the system for so long. You can't come in and just start throwing shit around and breaking shit. This is related to the mistake that conservatives always make with me, where conservatives come onto the channel and they're like, okay, Karlyn, we understand the left is a problem. What do we do about it? And I refuse to give them something to do because they haven't taken the time to understand the system that they are playing in. And so the first thing you have to do is understand the system that you're playing in. You have to understand who the players are. You have to understand what they care about. You have to understand how to accomplish things. You have to understand how they're accomplishing things. You have to understand how it all works. If you just go into something and you just start slinging shit around and yelling at people and posting memes everywhere and making fun of people and calling people fat and ugly and all the things that conservatives love to do to own the libs because it's all they have in the world, then you're not going to be successful. If you run for school board and you get elected to school board, and then you do what so many Moms for Liberty candidates have done that were endorsed by Moms for Liberty. We swear up and down we're going to protect you. And then you start integrating gender ideology into schools because you don't know what you're looking at, because you never took the time to learn what you were dealing with. You are not being effective within the system. You're actually causing more problems. No, you shouldn't do both. You absolutely should not do both. The reason you shouldn't do both is when you're slinging shit around and causing problems, it hinders actual productive work and you make so many mistakes that you just end up screwing things up worse. It's like trying to fix the engine on a car without understanding how the engine actually works. You're like, oh, I know how to put oil in my car, so I know how to do all this other stuff too. You know what you're going to do? You're going to fuck up the engine to your car. Like, just because you know how to put oil in your car or windshield wiper fluid doesn't mean you know how to fix the engine of your car. So can we stop pretending they're the same thing? If you try to fix the engine of your car because you put windshield wiper fluid into it one time and you think you know everything because you did that, you're going to fuck up your car. And it's exactly the same thing with this. If you don't take the time to understand the system that you're working in, listen, I've been doing this shit for longer than most people. There are very few activists, like so-called, like, I hate the term anti-woke now. I'm actively trying to feel get the term woke out of everything I do because I hate it so much now because it's been ruined by horrible people. But I was legitimately one of the earlier people doing this type of activism. I wasn't the first, not by a long shot, but I have some of the most longevity of anyone that's been doing this. I've been around a long fucking time. I have survived independently when most people have gone back to a day job. And there are a lot in my time doing this. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen a lot of people get sick of it and leave. I've seen a lot of people who never took the time to understand what they were dealing with and they failed colossally because of it. I've seen a lot of people lose their minds. The reason I can do what I'm doing today with starting the nonprofit, with doing all the stuff I'm doing with Decode the Left, is because I took the time to learn the system. And it's like with everything else, it's like you have to be pragmatic about it. Owning the libs on Twitter is not actually accomplishing anything. It's just wasting your time and making you feel morally superior. And she's kind of saying the same thing. She's saying, listen, man, you can't win in this system if you don't learn to play by the rules of the system. You can't win in this system if you don't understand how all this works. Yeah, I would argue, I think you're absolutely right about this, Pete. I think that Elon Musk made the same mistake with Doge. Elon Musk thought that because he got love bombed by the GOP and because Trump was like loving him and all that stuff, he thought he had actual power, but he didn't understand how the government worked. He didn't understand how the establishment worked. He was just getting all this love bombing from everywhere. He's getting all this positive attention. What happened the minute that Elon Musk did something that the government didn't want him to do? Oh, he was up shit creek, wasn't he? How quickly the conservatives discarded Elon Musk the moment he was no longer doing what they wanted him to do. There are a million stories like this. That's why learning this stuff is important. That's why, you know what? I can't pull a workbook out of my ass, Julian. I can't. Do you want me to stop everything I'm doing and write you a workbook? Is that what we're talking about now? Because listen, I understand you want this workbook. You've brought it up several times. I cannot just pull a workbook out of my ass. It doesn't work like that. The workbook is on the list. I don't want to keep hearing about it. I understand that you mean well, and I appreciate that, but it is on the list of many other things that I have going on right now, and it's just not going to happen right this second, and you need to accept that. If you want to write a workbook, go write a workbook. What is the end goal? Overthrowing capitalism and getting to the Marxist utopia. Period. End of discussion. I have outlined what the Marxist utopia looks like many times. You can find that on the channel. You can find it on the Substack. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. This has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. We are talking about leftist activism in the United States.
Each of those is different. And if you do feel the need to bring it down, I'm also not saying it's your fault, right? But I think it's okay to be a little bit strategic and to think about the long term. Grad school is one chapter of your life.
True.
Like, I remember having this, and actually just the other day, one of my oldest friends said to me, I remember when you were in grad school, because we were in New York together, and she said, and you would constantly fret about this, like, I'm not having a public impact. I've been swallowed up by the ivory tower, and oh my God, and like, I can't believe this is what my life has added up to. And thankfully, I had wise friends who were like, just finish your PhD first. Just like do this thing.
True.
And then we'll see what happens. And it's true, right? And so, yeah, I encourage you to do that same thinking. And if you ever want to talk more about it in detail, just write to me. I'm more than happy to jump on Zoom with you.
That's great. I'm trying to group a couple of these
Okay,
that are
great.
similar.
Thank you.
There are a lot of questions. They're great questions.
I'm going to read these both.
I'm judging those as somewhat similar.
Cool. University spaces and campus activism are often disconnected from working class life, true, leading some on the left to urge avoiding an overemphasis on the university. How do you think we can overcome this disconnect? What's something the labor movement can teach the Palestine movement, and what can the Palestine movement, teach the labor movement? So I actually think, if you look at the data, our image, it's kind of funny because I'm at U Chicago, so I'm kind of like representing the opposite of what I'm about to tell you. But when we think of the university,
we've covered Yuri Bezmenov countless times on the channel. Yuri Bezmenov is not guys, we are dealing with leftist activism in the country today. We are not dealing with leftist activism in the country in the 80s or the 70s. We are dealing with leftist activism in the country today. And so I understand that people like to listen to the dead philosophers. I understand people are like there is a reason that we don't watch Yuri Bezmenov all the time. And by the way, you could just go to the YouTube channel and look up Yuri Bezmenov, and you could find out that we literally covered him years ago. We are the only thing that I am interested in is what are far left activists doing in the country today. Do I think that Yuri Bezmenov from 1984 is going to be able to tell me what far left activists are doing in the country today? No, because he was active in the 70s and the 80s. And it's not to say that what he did was not valuable. Of course it's valuable, but it is not relevant to the question that we're asking, which is what is the far left doing in the country right now? What are they teaching? What ideas are they focusing on? Who are the organizations? Who are the activists? That is what we're doing here. Hey, I appreciate that, Day of the Rope. Which one did you get? Did you get the queer one, or did you get the Communist Manifesto one? Which one did you get?
We often think of places like in Chicago or UVO, that's like an R1. But actually, most people's university experience is of places that are not elite institutions, are not R1s. Universities are a big part of many working class people's lives. And increasingly so. And I think that I want us, and I think it's significant that the graduate student labor movement, has been the fastest growing sector of the labor movement.
Oh,
over
yeah?
the last decade.
The graduate students?
So I
Wow.
think we need to, I think this model of separation between like working class and college going is not true of the entire country and needs to be questioned. Because the reality is that like it's no longer like the biggest let me put my sociology hat. The biggest predictor, right, of people's like long-term wealth outcome is actually whether they inherited wealth, regardless of college degree. It's true that college degrees will improve your like lifelong earnings, but the idea that like the differences between college and not college is actually not necessarily sociologically accurate. So I think we need to kind of reorient that and think about how to make universities and how to center universities that are not elite. And so there's a lot of work to do on that front. But at the end of the day, we have to organize. We as people in this room are probably connected to the university. And so we also have to organize in the spaces that are available to us. And we can say, like, this doesn't represent everyone. This is not everything. It doesn't have to be the leadership role, but it is still important to organize in these spaces. I think the worst thing we can do is be in the institution and then pretend like we're not, and then use that as an excuse not to organize. The labor movement, I think power mapping, organizing, like these are the things the labor movement can teach the Palestine movement. And then I think the Palestine movement can help, it is really good at pulling in a lot of different sectors and conveying urgency. And I think that conveying, the Palestine movement is so deeply and thoroughly political. There's no version of it that can be depoliticized the way that some people want the labor movement to be. And I think that's the sort of benefit in that direction. Wow, I feel like such a beast right now. I'm doing it, guys. Cool. In critiquing the neoliberal, university scholars frequently fall into this historical amnesia. Can you speak to the degree of which the American university has been gilded and not golded? Okay, and as a grad student in political science, one of the social science departments who shamefully are not sponsoring this event, what advice do you have to confront the neutrality among our colleagues and faculty? How do you think the Palestine solidarity movement has changed in your lifetime?
This is exactly right, and I want to make sure my position is clear on this. It's not that I don't think it's valuable to understand how Marxism got here. Obviously, I'm doing a whole project to track the evolution of queer Marxism from the 60s until today. That's part of one of the things that the Center for Left-Wing Studies is going to do. It's not that I don't think it's valuable, but the problem is that it's what every single person is doing. So there are thousands of books probably about how Marxism got to America. Many of them are full of nonsense and bullshit, but like It's already been done. How many people are online are pontificating about the Frankfurt School or Marx and Engels or any of these things? How many people are going back and reading the dead philosophers from 50, 100, 200 years ago and talking about like the French Revolution and all this stuff, or talking about, the Cultural Revolution in China? It's not as though I don't think this stuff is valuable. It's that I think it's already been done. And I think some people have done it better than others. And it's not to say we won't consider it. I mean, obviously, we watched a whole documentary about communism earlier this week, where we were looking at, communism during the McCarthy era and what it was actually like to be a communist during the McCarthy era. It's not that we don't do it, but what we are focusing on this channel is, what are they doing right now? And I don't know anyone else that's actually focused on that the way I am, in using primary sources from the left itself. The only people talking about it are, frankly, conservative bullshit artists who are not being truthful, and what they're saying doesn't align with what's actually happening in the real world. Respectfully. Okay. You are a person that chatted in earlier. Let's see your channel history. Channel history viewing. So this is the person earlier that chatted in about the KGB bullshit that I already clearly explained. I've now just clearly explained to you why we have the methodology we do. Respectfully, I understand that you don't care, but it's literally a direct extension. All right, bro, this is a question just for you and only for you. No one else answer this question. This is just for Sinai here, who thinks he knows everything about everything. How does the left define capitalism go? There is a direct extension due to the infiltration in our society here in the left via the universities. How does the left define capitalism go? I'm expecting an answer from you. You have 1 minute to answer me. Your answer can either be an answer to the question, how does the left define capitalism? Or your answer is, I don't know. I don't want to hear anything else from you other than answering the question, how does the left define capitalism? Or admitting that you have no fuck off clue. How does the left define capitalism, Sinai? We're waiting for you. This is so you can show us how much you know about the left. You want to tell me how to research on the internet when you've never even been to my channel before? How does the left define capitalism? We are waiting for your answer. Go. Do 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 do. How does left define capitalism? We're waiting for your answer. You know everything about everything. We are waiting for you to educate us. How does the left define capitalism? You want me to change my entire research methodology that I've used for years to be a highly accurate predictor of what the left is going to do next when you don't even know what the fuck we're doing here? How does the left define capitalism? We are waiting for your answer. This is a very simple answer for anyone who knows anything about the left at all. We are testing how much you know right now. How does the left define capitalism? Marty, shut the fuck up. How does the left define capitalism? We're waiting. If you don't answer, I'm going to permanently ban you from the channel, because it's really fucking disrespectful when I stop an entire stream to address your questions and then you just sit there and say nothing because you know you don't know the answer to the question. You know you don't know the answer to the question. You don't know basic 101 level information about the left. If you knew it, you already would have answered. So now you have 30 seconds to answer. You can either answer the question or you can say, I don't know. But if you don't do either of these things, you are permanently banned from my channel and you are not welcome back. How does the left define capitalism? 30 seconds. We have to account for the delay. $15 seconds. If you knew the answer, you already would have answered it and you've said nothing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, permanent ban from the channel. Thank you. Goodbye. You are no longer welcome here. Don't ever tell me how to do my research when you have no fucking clue how the left defines basic language. Goodbye.
Oh, I love that question. How must we adapt to those changes? Okay, I'm going to start with the neoliberal university and the nostalgia question. We have a tendency to define history in terms of how the best faring people in that history have been faring. And if we think about the eras that are seen as the golden eras of the university, and then think about the university's relationship with Black folks or poor folks or immigrants, it becomes very clear that it was not this like magical place. I highly recommend, if anyone has read Palo Alto by Malcolm Harris. Has anyone read this book?
Palo Alto is a giant book, is like 200 pages long. You want me to knit a flag? You want me to knit a flag? All right. Well, I'll get right on that, Marty. Okay.
It's a history of Palo Alto, but really also a history of Stanford. And like, oh man, woo! And Stanford is a pretty recent place, right? And it wasn't built in the South. It wasn't like, but that just the kind of sheer evil at the heart of an institution. I mean, again, I work at U Chicago, so. So I think that I think it's just simply not the case that these institutions have ever been innocent. And again, if we reject a model of the world that centers the white cis man as like the modal experience of any given era, then that imperfection is very clear. We don't have to dig very deep to see that imperfection in universities. Neutrality. Okay, so I come from the place that is branded neutrality, right? Many universities have taken up the so-called Chicago principles, especially since the protests. And actually, two of my colleagues, one of whom runs this.
No, I understand why you might think this, Mike, but that's just not true. The fact that the left has groups scattered without any unifying organization, a positive thing, that's only because you're thinking like a conservative and you think that power can only be attained through official means. The left is incredibly powerful because they are decentralized. We can never destroy them. So it's not as though the groups don't work together. There are many groups that work together. They choose the times they work together. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they don't. When it benefits them to work together, they're very willing to come together and work together. That's why you have all these leftist protest websites that have 80, 100, 200 different sponsoring organizations because they are perfectly willing to come and work together. I'm just saying they're not doing it on an active, ongoing basis. They do it when it makes sense. Some allies are stronger than others. Some allegiances are stronger than others. There are some partnerships that are on like a more active level, whereas others are passive. But no, the problem is that there's not one head to cut off. There's 8,000 heads to cut off. And by the way, those heads grow back every single time we cut off one. 3 more grow back in its place. So no, it is not advantageous for them to have it's not advantageous for us that they're a highly decentralized movement. Decentralized movements are the most effective way to organize. They're also the most difficult way to organize. So the left has already mastered the most difficult way to organize, like in the country. And there's nothing that we can do to catch up with them. And there's nothing we can do to kill the monster because the monster has 8,000 heads scattered all over the country. And it's probably actually significantly more than 8,000 if I'm being honest about it. We are the founding fathers of the coming 2033 revolution, and I'm Betsy Ross. You're Benjamin Franklin. HT is George Washington, and BT is Thomas Jefferson. Oh, Marty sent me a super chat. Of course you're in New Zealand. Of course. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it. Marty is not even fucking. Can we just talk for a second about the fact that Marty is not even fucking American, and yet he considers himself to be a founding father like Benjamin Franklin?
Forum for Free Inquiry. They just wrote an op-ed in the New York Times saying business leaders need to learn from what university leaders have learned, which is just shut up, just don't say anything, be neutral. And the actual line that intelligent people at the University of Chicago will say openly to other intelligent people is, Get ready. Divestment is political. Investment is neutral. Make it make sense. I mean, my God, is that why I fill out a conflict of interest every year for the university to talk about, like, so when I say my money is invested in such and such, that's tied to my research, and I have to disclose it to the university, isn't that literally because investment is not neutral? Well, I mean, this is what I mean about the doublespeak, right? This is what I mean about the doublespeak. These institutions are so good at making up a blatant lie and getting us to chase it. I mean, we're watching Trump do this with DEI. He doesn't mean DEI. He means racial integration. That's what he's saying. He's saying racial integration is bad. And he's saying it's DEI. And all these like mainstream journalists are like, DEI? No, call it what it is, right? There is no such thing as neutrality. It doesn't exist. I don't care what you say. That op-ed is an obfuscation. We are not protesting the university because we wish the president had said something. I don't care what he says. What I care about is that I, as a Palestinian, have spent 12 hours a day in my office toiling for an institution that is actively killing my people live. And I will never forgive that. And if you look me in the eye and you tell me that that's neutrality, not only are you a murderer, you are also gaslighting me. And it's unforgivable.
You know, a mom, you could just quit your job. This is like the second time I've caught a mom on video shit-talking the University of Chicago in the this past month. A mom, you could just quit your job. No one is forcing you to be a professor at the University of Chicago. If you hate the University of Chicago so much and you think it's the most evil organization in the world and the University of Chicago is literally killing your people in Palestine, you can quit your job. You don't have to work there. It's really that simple. The dissemination of pro-capitalist ideas on the intellectual level and not what the clueless right does, insults, surface level bombards that does not penetrate. Ideas need to be fought with ideas. I'm not sure what you're saying. Can you be more specific about what you're... I don't know the point you're making. How likely do you think a civil war could happen between communists and the U.S.? Oh, a civil war is going to happen between communists and the government. I think that a civil war is going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years. I think they're going to try to I think they're going to try to violently overthrow the U.S. government. It could happen sooner if there's a big crisis that pops things off. It could happen later, depending on if things happen. You can't predict the exact timing of a revolution, but the left believes that we are in late stage capitalism. The left believes that the proletariat is going to rise up at any moment. They talk about this openly. This is why they're forming all these organizations. They want to be prepared for when the revolution actually starts. The left is talking openly about infiltrating the military. We heard the Revolutionary Communists of America do the whole talk where they're talking about organizing like a military type organization because part of what they're trying to do is infiltrate the military to get the military to turn their guns on the government. And all this stuff has been going on for a long time. So I think within the next 10 to 15 years, they are going to try to violently overthrow the government. It might be sooner if something happens to provoke it. It might be longer than that. But I'm absolutely convinced that there is no getting around that there's going to be a war between the radical revolutionary left and the government because they openly talk about overthrowing it like all the effing time. Yes, they believe the government is based in capitalism. They believe the Constitution is based in capitalism. They own the military. You understand the left has owned the military academies for years. Why do you think Trump had to go in and fire all the quote-unquote woke generals? Do you really think he got all of them? Because I don't think he got all of them. Do you really think he got all of the far-left leadership and teachers out of the military academies that have been sitting in the military academies for a long time? Because I don't think he did that. There is no universe in which Trump has weeded this stuff out of the military. There's no universe. It's been in the military for a long time. It will continue to be in the military. They actively target the military. The military is not conservative. Aaron Bushnell was in the military. I think he was in the Air Force, right? He lit himself on fire outside the Palestinian embassy. Or the Israeli embassy, one of the embassies. Oh, did Marty give another super chat? Yeah. Thanks, Marty. Thanks. We all needed that visual, Marty. Thank you.
It is not neutral. Nostalgia, neoliberalism. Wow, we're doing it all. How do you think the Palestine solidarity movement has changed? I talked about this a little bit at lunch with some of you. Y'all, I just want to emphasize, I'm not that old. I'm 35. Okay, I know my students are like, okay, ma'am. I do send gifts, and that is embarrassing for me. But even in my lifetime, right? If you had told me one day 80% of Democrats would think we should cut aid to Israel, I would be like, what? No way, right? I had, like, when I was in middle school, every school presentation I did was about Palestine, and I would literally like pull down a map and be like, okay, guys, Palestine is a place. It is where I am from. Let me tell you about it. And no one had heard of it, right? We have come such a long way. The world has changed. We changed it. All of you in this room.
Yeah, actually, this is a really good point that I don't talk about often, but I'm going to start incorporating this more because you're right about this. Do people understand that in order to be an officer in the military, you either need to go to a military academy or you need a college degree? Like, that's part of the requirement. So you literally have to go to college in order to be an officer in the military. Do you think that every officer in the military got through college without being indoctrinated into leftist bullshit? I mean, yeah, they may have done ROTC and that kind of stuff too, but we know that this stuff was being taught in the military academies. We know that. It's not disputed. Do you really think that every single person who went to college and did ROTC in college didn't get indoctrinated into this leftist bullshit? I don't think that. So it might be true that if you're just an average enlisted person in the military, maybe you're more conservative because you didn't go to college. Fine. But almost every single person in a leadership position that's able to make decisions went through college.
Like, it is incredible. The changes have been so incredible, right? That I walk into now like a nice chic, like, I was at a fancy restaurant in Chicago the other day, and my waiter, between doing all the like weird things they do at fancy restaurants, was like, I love your necklace, free Palestine. What? Unbelievable. Never would have happened even 5 years ago. So we changed public opinion, but what we've also learned is public opinion isn't enough, because we don't live in.
I say Annapolis is actually a really cool town. Annapolis is really cool. If you've never been to Annapolis, it's actually a really cool place to walk around. It's where the Naval Academy is. It's a nice little, they've got all sorts of cool little shops. I used to go to Annapolis because I knew someone that lived near Annapolis. Also, like, there's actually a really big, so you're out near Baltimore then. So you should go to Red Emma's. Red Emma's is a socialist bookstore in Baltimore where they have all sorts of like socialist speakers all the time. Go to Red Emma's, do a recon mission for us. Go take a whole bunch of pictures of what they've got hanging up. That'd be pretty great.
Democracy or how public opinion translates into
exactly.
Policy change.
Exactly.
So
see, notification, I may have yelled at you earlier, but you know what? I did it with love, because you're absolutely right about this. Conservatives are to blame too, because they were so focused on owning libtard communists. Because conservatives were so focused on owning libtards, communists were recruiting, planning, and infiltrating institutions, including the military and the K-12 public schools and the news media and literally everything else. But man, conservatives posted some great memes on Twitter, bro.
Right? And that's why we're focused on power. That's why we're focused on leverage. That's why we're focused on material change. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for filtering. I'm doing great. This is like yeah, I feel like I'm on a game show. It's like, how do you keep hope? Wow, that's a good one. The organizer, abolitionist Mariam Kaba, has said that hope is a discipline.
Red Emma's is in Baltimore. I'm not exactly sure where, but it's definitely in Baltimore.
And I've really taken that up. Hope is not just something that we like have or we don't have. It's something we work at and we cultivate in ourselves. And those moments when you're losing hope as an organizer and as a human are moments to kind of turn inward a little and give yourself a little love and find places that energize you. One day I felt really hopeless around Christmas time, I think in 2023, and what is time? 2023, yeah.
Time's not real.
And I went and sang carols for Palestine, where they had changed the words to a bunch of Christmas carols to make them like Palestine related. And I'm not Christian, I don't know the carols, and I can't sing. But it felt hopeful and joyful, you know? So I think, yeah, hope is a discipline. Like, as humans, we are particularly bad at figuring out how the world works. We're really bad at predicting the future. Every tyrant has fallen. Every system has fallen. Every single one. And we don't know, when this one will fall or how, but it will. Like, we know that. And I think for me, and this is where I draw on my Muslim faith, for me, what keeps me going is recognizing that for me, I believe that God has put me on this earth to do something and has given me a set of resources, and that my job is not the outcomes. My job is to wake up every day, use those resources at my disposal to fight for justice. And if at the end of the day,
I'm pretty sure I permanently banned you from the channel. So why are you back here on another account? I told you clearly that you were going to say one of two things in my chat. So now you have a second account that you come back here and you didn't actually answer the question I asked you. How does the left define capitalism? If you want to be unbanned from the channel, you have to be respectful of the rules and the system that I have in place. Are you going to answer the question of how the left defines capitalism, or aren't you? You didn't answer the question. You didn't answer the question. What does private property mean? What does private property mean? We're waiting. What does private property mean? No one else answer. We're waiting. Went and signed in under a different fucking account. We're waiting for your answer. Nope, that's not what it means. Do you want to try again? That's not what it means. Do you want to try again, or do you want to admit you don't know? All right, well, I'm not delaying my stream anymore for your bullshit, so if you want to be unbanned, you will answer the question correctly in the chat. You will either answer with the correct answer, or you will say, I don't know, and then I may consider permanently, or unbanning your account that I already permanently banned. Exactly. You don't know. You don't know. So when I give you a piece of feedback about why I'm not taking your advice, and I was very nice to you when I gave you that piece of feedback, and then you come back in and you say, excuse me, sir, do you understand? No, it is you that does not understand. Your job is to shut the fuck up and learn and to ask questions. Your job is not to advise me about how I'm doing my research.
Feel that I've done that, then it's okay. The outcomes are not for me to control. I know a lot. I've been writing this article about how so many people got so much more religious after the genocide started. I definitely have found a lot of solace in that. So that's how I keep hope. Yeah. Of course, we are not liberating Palestine. Palestine is
Thanks,
liberating us.
Nomero.
But
I appreciate it.
Ensure campus actions actually align with Palestinians and doesn't get lost in campus and U.S. politics? Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we constantly need to check in with the movement. I think these spaces, especially in movements have ebb and flow moments, right? And when the ebb happens is the moment to sort of like take stock, look around, check in with each other and ourselves, check in with our goals, and check in with the folks that we're fighting for and with. And so it's not always going to be perfect. We have to give ourselves and each other a lot of grace. But I think that I think that that's a sort of iterative process and a work of like keeping that conversation going. It's not about like, there's not one solution. It's more that has to be an active commitment that we're constantly doing those check-ins. The other thing I would say about that is that, and I said this earlier today, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but even if we liberated Palestine tomorrow, we would still have a lot of work to do for liberation. So it's okay for Palestine to be part of a broader project for liberation.
So it's not just about liberating Palestine? Wow.
I think that we should not be siloed, right?
Pop quiz, why would it take, if we liberate Palestine tomorrow and we free Palestine from the evil clutches of Israel tomorrow, we still have a lot of work to do. Why is that? If they freed Palestine tomorrow, the free Palestine, free Palestine, if they freed Palestine tomorrow, it still wouldn't be enough. They still have a lot of work to do. Why is that? Why would you say that? There is still the U.S. Yep. Still got to liberate the U.S. Not just enough to free Palestine. No one is free until everyone is free. The revolution is a global movement. No one is free until everyone is free. There are people that are still oppressed by capitalism in the world. Capitalism hasn't been dismantled just because Palestine is freed from the clutches of Israel. Because the land is colonized, the land will always be colonized because it'll just be colonized somewhere else. These are capitalist countries. There are capitalist countries. Yep. This is a global, not Antifa, intifada. I understand why you did that because the words are similar. Global intifada. No one is free until everyone has communism. Exactly.
And so like we should have the check-ins and all that, but also there's a broader movement going on, and that's where we're strongest.
There is a broader movement. It's not about Palestine. It's about the broader movement.
Do I get like a sticker at the end of this? Or?
I think so. Right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I actually love mementos. I got a duck whistle. I'm unreasonably excited about it. Thank you so much. What advice would you give for navigating conflict within organizing spaces, e.g. racism and sexism? How would you recommend going about incorporating other genocides into the Palestine movement without taking away from it, or do you not think they should be combined? Thank you for being here. Happy Black History Month. Thank you. Happy Black History Month to all of you. So navigating conflict, again, repeating myself a little bit. I think that we need to draw a clear, I told this story, I'm sorry for my repetition for the few people who are at lunch, but there's this amazing letter that I always reference between the Black Panthers and the Women's Liberation Front, in which they say, and there was some dispute or conflict that had happened, and the writer, who I think was Stokely Carmichael, says, the Women's Liberation Front is our friends, and friends can make mistakes. The enemy cannot make mistakes because the enemy's existence is a mistake. And I always think about that letter, and I always bring it up in organizing spaces, because we have to have a clear distinction between friends who make mistakes and enemies. And we often mistake the two, in part because we don't have access to our enemies, right? Like, you don't get to
All
yell
right.
at Biden.
All right, fine, but I don't want any more back talk when I tell you something. Like, I don't want that. That's not part of what we do here. There are plenty of people in the chat who advise me on things. The people in the chat who advise me on things are people who have taken the time to learn what we're doing here. You haven't taken the time to learn yet, and I don't want to hear any more from you until you start learning. To be really honest about you, there is a hierarchy on this channel. Hey, Andre, thank you for the super chat from a Romanian. I should have known you were Romanian. American Christian. Hey, you know what? You're allowed to be Christian if you want to, whatever. Love your work, Dr. Karlyn. Don't let other Christian complaints stop you from fighting. No, I'm never. You think I'm going to let Christians stop me? Christians have been the biggest pain in my ass in the last 5 years. And I've still persevered through it. I'm not going to let Christians stop me, but I do appreciate the good Christians that don't cause me problems. Thank you. Yes. Extremely pro-McCarthy. Extremely pro-McCarthyism. We need a new McCarthyism in this country.
You don't get to yell at Trump. You don't get to yell at Netanyahu, but you can yell at your comrade who actually cares what you think, unlike those people, right? And so often we feel so impotent and so enraged that we are lashing out at the people that we can actually hurt, and those are our comrades and the people in our movement. And sometimes it comes from a place of thinking that we have the right answers. Listen, I'm a Marxist, I'm a materialist, I know factionalism, I know exactly which section of Capital Volume 2 that I think defines me as a Marxist. But at the end of the day, right, we don't know what's gonna work. We don't. We're in unprecedented conditions, and we've never really won in our lifetime. The times that we've won are so rare as a left. And so
yeah, so rare.
You may have your beliefs.
The left basically never wins according to them. Totally.
But at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to work. And so don't treat these differences as the lines in the sand within the movement. I really believe that we need to have a lot more grace for each other, but also just a lot more humility about our political positions, right? Who knows what's going to make an encampment successful? We all were trying it at the same time, right? And of course, we have a lot of different opinions about it, but at the end of the day, what ended our encampments was not each other.
Aloha.
It was not the people who escalated, or the people who didn't, or the people who talked to the police, or the people who didn't. What ended it was the administrators and the cops and the broader system that doesn't see Palestinians as human beings. That's who defeated us, not each other. So that's really important, I think, we have to be able to zoom out a little bit. And talk to movement elders, because I think it's funny to describe myself as any kind of elder at 35. I'm as a movement elder. But it's I've seen there's something comforting about having gone through these cycles and being oh yeah, no, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, you're all really mad at each other right now. The next wave of protests, you're gonna be comrades again. It's okay. I think that's one of the roles that older folks can kind of play, is to give a little bit of that perspective. But yeah,
that is very true.
I think also
actually that's important for us to think about too. That is very true. And I've been on the internet for 5 years, which is probably 5 years longer than most people should be on the internet, or at least as a public person on the internet. And I never planned to do something like this, so I've had to learn kind of on the fly how to do this, and it's been an interesting experience. But one of the things that I will tell you is that I have seen so many people come and go, and I've seen so many times where something has happened to someone, and then the declaration is, they're totally over, they're totally irrelevant, or that the declaration is that you have to have a certain amount of viewers to do anything of value, or else you're totally irrelevant, or any of these things. And it's just not true, honestly. It's just not true. I have way less views today, 5 years later, than I did 5 years ago because I was a conservative darling 5 years ago. And my stuff is much more effective today than it was 5 years ago. And I actually end up teaching more people today than I did 5 years ago because I have a more focused audience now. And I have people that actually wanted to learn. I've seen so many people like give up on activism because they tweeted something that went viral for all the wrong reasons and they got a lot of blowback and hate for it and they thought, oh, I'm never going to recover. I've had people try to do that stuff to me. I've had people spread smear campaigns about me on the internet that still rear their head to this day because they were pissed off that I had more viewers than them or for some other stupid reason. And, you know, people were convinced, oh, this totally destroyed her, you know, doing this, that, and the other thing. And then it turns out you can just keep going and you don't actually have to take the bullshit of the internet. And I think that that's just true for many things. I think it's like you have to look at a lot of this stuff in context. Or, you know, I think the reason that many of us knew that this stuff with Trump was going to go south is that we've seen the inaction of conservatives over and over and over again. And I think that, you know, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to say that there is I guess I'm trying to say, like, for people that think that I'm going to give up, or the people that think that, like, we should never give up. We like, no matter what happens, like, literally no matter what happens. If the shit hits the fan, if I go viral on the internet for tweeting something spicy about the Jews, which I obviously don't mean because I'm just making a point. If something happens and maybe I lose my YouTube channel or something, like, God forbid, that's never going to happen. Like, knock on wood, obviously that would never happen. But, like, I guess I'm just trying to say that our position is never give up, never surrender. We're creating a decentralized model for a reason. And no matter what happens, we keep our head down and we keep going. And this goes for, like, maybe you go viral on the internet for something stupid, which is really an experience everyone should have at some point. Maybe you get canceled by your job or, like, whatever. You always just have to keep in mind that it is never over until you say it's over. It is never too late. There is never anything that you can't overcome if you literally just keep your head down and keep going. Fucking John Fetterman is a member of the United States Senate. Look at all the people that have had scandal after scandal after scandal. Especially in the last couple of years, there have been so many scandals with all these different people. And they just keep going. James Lindsay has been losing his mind on the internet for over a year. He has said some of the most insane, wacky shit. We know he's in an open marriage with his wife because he wanted to fuck the Moms for Liberty members all over the country. Like, literally anyone can come back from anything. Literally anything is possible. And no matter what happens, you just keep your head down and you just keep moving forward. And don't believe any of the bullshit people try to convince you of online about what's possible or what you're capable of or what you can achieve, because most of the people who will try to convince you that you're not capable of doing what you want to do, it's because they've never done anything. And here's the thing too, like, I hear from people I've been hearing from a lot of Christians in my feed over the last 2 days. You're irrelevant. You don't do anything. You suck. You're a communist, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you leave the internet? You don't get any interaction. You don't get any engagement. Well, has it changed anything I'm doing on the channel? No. Has it changed my ability to get super chats to fund my work? No. Has it changed my ability to start a nonprofit that people are already donating to? No. Has it changed anything with my Substack, which is where I make most of my money anyway? No. Has it changed my ability to write and publish books? I mean, I can't get my books published through a conservative book publisher because I told them all to fuck off, but I can damn well publish them on my own. I don't even need a fucking publisher anymore. So, like, don't listen to anyone. If you get knocked down, just get back up and just keep going. And, you know, that's what people do when I was thinking about this the other day. Like, you know, so many of the challenges that I've experienced are like the same challenges that, like, someone like Adam Green has experienced. And it's like, if you're going to do something like this, and I know that, like, many of you don't want to do something like this, and I understand it, but I think that this does apply to other parts of, like, people's lives too, so I want to just extrapolate on it a little bit. if you aren't willing to get told that you're full of shit and you should shut the fuck up and get off the internet, you shouldn't be on the internet in the first place. Because you will always have people in life, and not just true on the internet, but like in your real life too. You will always have people in your life that have never accomplished anything, that love to tell you to shut up and go away because they are projecting their own baggage onto you. And you don't ever have to let those people define you. And it doesn't matter if they're your boss. And it doesn't matter if they're a big-time influencer on the internet who probably bought all their Twitter followers. It doesn't fucking matter. Just do what you want to do.
Creating room for joy and community with each other that like help remind each other that we're on the same side. We're
Hey,
not
thanks,
enemies, we're not,
Suzanne.
so
Appreciate
when there
it.
is conflict, spending a lot of time on repair and intentional community building, I think is very, very effective. And being able to say, hey, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that. And then we've got another one from Andre. Christian Romanians never gave up for the 5 decades under communism. They got ready for a capitalist revolution versus communists, always have a winning mindset, win, win, win. Yeah, I appreciate that. And like, it's true, man. Like, we're playing the long game. We're not playing the short game. We are playing the game for history. That is why we're doing the Center for Left-Wing Studies. We are documenting this for history. It's not just for now, although it can be used now. We are documenting this for the long term.
Messed up. Or like, I don't know whether I did the right thing or not. So a lot, we need to be more vulnerable with each other in movements, I think. Now I feel like a therapist. Oh no, thanks, sorry. How would you recommend going? Oh wait, no. Other genocides. Yes, I mean, I think this is so important. I think that we need to, of course, we need to talk about the Congo. We need to talk about Sudan. And in fact, I do think, I mean, one of my friends who organizes around the Congo in particular, and he says, well, part of the reason people are talking about the Congo is because the Palestine movement has made us talk about genocide. And so we're talking more about the Congo as a result of the Palestine movement. Yes, of course they should be combined because ultimately.
No. I think you're talking about the right, Adrian. I have the impression that love and support on the left is so shallow and highly conditional. No, that's the right. That's the right. Now, that's not to say there isn't conflict on the left. Of course, there's conflict on the left, but the left is significantly better at working through conflict than the right is because that's just part of their mentality. They actually have like processes for doing it and stuff like that. So no, I don't agree with this. I think if there's any place that love and support are shallow and highly, highly, highly conditional, it's on the right, which you know.
What is killing people in the Congo and what's killing people in Sudan and what's killing people in Palestine is racial capitalism. And there's colonial
it's all
form,
racial capitalism.
And there's a neo-colonial form where you have countries fighting over a land grab, a second land grab over Africa, where they're trying to take gold out of the Sudan and take cobalt out of the DRC, right? This attempt by stronger countries to extract resources and treat whatever population stands in the way as disposable, those are the same logics. So absolutely they should be talked about in the same breath. I think that it's harder to organize around, when I've had events with Sudanese folks, the ask has been mutual aid, right? Because people don't want US intervention and the US is not the main player in Sudan. It is much more so in the Congo, but in a less direct way than giving $20 billion a year. So I think we need to also, have a lot of nuance around, have a lot of zoomed out perspective as to how these things are interrelated in the broader systems that we're fighting.
Yeah,
and
real.
Try to really.
I mean, Jordan Peterson and honestly most right-wing conservatives hate the far right way significantly more than they hate the far left. You can tell that just based on their actions. It's like, look at the people that they're attacking. Or do they ever attack communists? When was the last fucking time any right-wing influencer actually attacked communists? In a real and significant way? Honestly, when was the last time that right-wing influencers actually went after the far left? Do you know if any of these people view Hamas as a terror? They don't give a flying fuck about Hamas. The only people that care about Hamas are conservative bullshit artists on the right. We never hear them talk about Hamas. They don't give a flying fuck. Was listening to the audiobook, What is Anti-Racism and Why It Means Anti-Capitalism? Oh, I'm sorry. And all I could think was this book is just a massive W for Karlyn, for everything Karlyn has said the left believes. Yeah, I mean, we watched presentations about that book. So guys, for people who don't know, there is literally a book with the title, What is Anti-Racism and Why It Means Anti-Capitalism? If you don't understand why whiteness means capitalism, just look at the title of this book. They literally believe anti-racism is anti-capitalism. That, I mean, it's like they believe that capitalism created all racism. And so the left writes literal books about why I'm right, and the right can't even read the title. But I appreciate you suffering for all our benefit, Kyle, and listening to that book. Does pro-Palestine mean pro-Hamas? Do you believe pro-Palestine means pro-Hamas? Because if it means pro-Hamas, why don't they ever say Hamas? Pro-Palestine means pro-proletariat, pro-worker, pro-oppressed people. It has nothing to fucking do with Hamas. Anyone that has ever told you it has anything to do with Hamas, you need to stop listening to immediately. The left doesn't give a flying fuck about Hamas. They believe Israel are the settler colonists that stole the Palestinian land from the indigenous people and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. They are pro-Palestine because the Palestinians are in a decolonization effort to take back their land. Has nothing to fuck off do with Hamas. That's why you never hear them say the term Hamas. And anyone who says they're pro-Hamas are lying to try to make money or kiss the ass of Israel. Do you understand?
Get at like, okay, so what is the ask from our movements? Is our ask talk, awareness? Is our ask, a particular like demand, etc.? And I think we need to spend time developing that for the DRC and for the Sudan. Okay, I think I did those.
So I'm gonna just because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
You got, I think, all I'm keeping them.
Okay.
This one's a group of that really get into the kind of the structure of movement building.
Yeah.
In terms of the flanks. And so
Yeah.
there's a group, maybe if you can just kind of skim through a couple of those and then make a general response, give you enough time so we can get to all the questions, hopefully, before we're
Literally, no one gives a fuck if you're a Zionist, bro, if you're here to learn about the left. If you're not here to learn about the left, you can leave, but literally no one gives a fuck if you're a Zionist.
Yeah, so distrust and strategy differences. So how do we treat each other better across the flanks? There needs to be a lot of, I think that one of the things we talked about today at lunch was there's no perfect kind of calibration between that's like, this is the perfect percent of radical, perfect percent of progressive, percent moderate. I think it needs to be campaign by campaign and goal by goal, right? So if we as a movement can come together and say, what are our long-term goals? What are our shorter-term goals? What are our strategies? What are our tactics, right? If we say like, okay, in the long term, for example, in the long term, we want divestment. In the short term, we can't get to divestment unless we break the hold of the board of trustees on this like campus. In order to do that, we need to raise an awareness, like we need to raise a level of awareness about the role that the trustees played and who they are, right?
Do you know what she's saying right now? Do you know what she's saying? Our major goal is to get the universities to divest from Israel. Which, by the way, for everyone who thinks that the pro-Palestine protesters don't know what they're protesting for, you need to stop listening to whoever told you that. The pro-Palestine protesters, their goal was and still continues to be, get the universities to divest from Israel. That's what the BDS movement is. It's boycott, divest, sanction. They want the universities to stop investing in Israel, okay? They want the university to stop investing in Israel because Israel are the settler colonists that stole the land from the Palestinians. It has nothing to do with them being Jewish. The left doesn't care that they're Jewish. There are many Jewish people on the left, but they want the universities to stop investing in the settler colonist regime that is Israel. What Eman is saying is that in order to get the universities to divest from Israel, we need to go through the boards of trustees. Now, if you don't know how university systems work, you might think the president is in charge of the university. That's not true. The board of trustees is in charge of the university. The board of trustees hires the president. The president reports to the board of trustees. Typically, the way someone gets on the board of trustees at a university is they give the university a lot of money. When Eman is saying we need to go through the board of trustees and we need to teach people who the board of trustees are, she's literally saying the board of trustees are run by Zionist Jews, and we need to teach people that in order to dismantle the boards of trustees at universities, which are run by Zionist Jews that have donated a lot of money to the university. And until we dismantle the structure with the board of trustees at the top, we are not going to be able to get them to divest from Israel because they are run by Zionist Jews. Ray over on Rumble asks, is that like the Board of Regents? Yes, Board of Regents would be another name. In some states, they do call it regents. There are also some there are some universities that are really, really large systems where you might have a Board of Trustees, and then the Board of Trustees is just for the university, and then you have a Board of Regents that is kind of over the whole university system. So it works a little bit differently, but generally speaking, yeah. She didn't say replace them. Did you hear her say replace? I didn't hear her say replace. They would just get rid of them. They want a dictatorship of the proletariat. That means they would want the people to run the university. That's why they call anytime they take over a building or a library or they do an encampment, the people's university, the people's library. It's a dictator. They want to create a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Then it's like, okay, so in the shorter term, okay, we need a campaign about who the trustees are and who they are, right? For example, as like a kind of this week, this month, this year, this decade. If we have that kind of conversation, the roles, I think, become easier to delineate, right? I think right now these roles happen kind of spontaneously, right? Like, there isn't a lot of that conversation. So for example, at U Chicago, we've been having meetings between students and faculty every 2 weeks to like draw out this long-term strategy to be like, and it's not that we're all gonna do the same thing, right? So like the students can have the students can come protest outside of a meeting of the Board of Trustees in ways that like some faculty can't quite be seen there, right? Or like whatever, but once we figure out what the goals are and the strategies are, it becomes easier to figure out that division of labor. And I think it needs to really be like, we need to think through what are the consequences of these strategies for these different people, right? Like, what would it be like to have the conversation and like play it out, you know? Just as an example, one student said, well, what if this person, and he named a famous tenured professor at our university who is very much an ally and very like she's an FSJP, and he was like, I just don't get why y'all aren't making any sacrifices. Like, what if she changed herself to the the door of the president's office? And I was like, okay, let's play out the scenario. She changed herself to the door of the president's office. Then what? How long can she sit there in the cold before she needs to like sleep, go to the bathroom, whatever? All they need to do is wait her out, right? She's 67. They just need to wait her out. And they will. And after that, she's never, ever going to be invited to a meeting with a dean again, right? She's the person who told us like what the deans were thinking about X, Y, and Z, right? She's never, ever going to be in those rooms where she could kind of come back and give us information. And she's one of very few senior people who are on our side. So like, let's play it out, right? Because it's easy to say, well, she's just not willing to make sacrifices. And it's like, is that true? And maybe it is, like maybe in a different action, yes, she should be changing, we should all be doing that, maybe. But the point is, it's only through that conversation that we can figure out what the strategic thing to do is. It has to be, to me, it has to be oriented around what do we want to achieve? How, like, what do we want to do for Palestine or for whatever our cause is, right? Because it's not just about staking an ideological position, right? We are now a powerful movement that can do things.
Okay. No one gives a fuck what your personal opinion is. If you are not here to listen and learn, you don't need to be here. I am no longer interested in what your personal opinion is in the chat. So you're going to stop. And the next time I see you pontificate on whatever the fuck you feel like pontificating on, you're distracting people in the chat from actually listening. You don't even know what the fuck is going on here. So your job is to shut the fuck up and listen and ask questions. No more of this bullshit. You can do whatever you want. I don't really care.
What do we want to achieve? What is the possible way that we can achieve it? So unless we have those conversations, it's not going to be clear, you know? Yeah. Okay.
That I thought was going to be in a different group, but I'm going to let you add it to this.
Is it strategic to look into running a student government campaign to leverage institutional power to aid our current movements, labor, Palestine, immigration rights? So I think it depends. Does your student government have power? So genuinely, I'm not even trying to be shady, truly. There are places where student governments have, for example, a person on the board of trustees, or they have a vote on something or another, right? If you have that, then yeah, for sure, go for it. If you don't, then it becomes a question of like, so like I said, for a long time, for a decade, these student government votes, the investment votes, were a core bread and butter of the Palestine movement. They happened at my university, and we often won them. Like we often would win like student government, that happened at Chicago, happened in Michigan. We would win these divestment votes. Our grad student union at NYU voted for divestment, but it had no material power. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It could be a very good list building exercise. It could be a really good way to figure out like who's on your side, who's not, who's willing to sign a petition, who's not, right?
See,
it could be a very good way to map.
No, you are another person that needs to shut the fuck up and listen. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So the point I want to make with this is, so the left understands that you can do a political campaign or an effort or, you know, have a vote in the student government. And even if it never goes anywhere and it never accomplishes anything, it can accomplish tertiary goals. All right, you just got timed out and banned. Goodbye. The right, okay, oftentimes what the right does is they say, well, you're never going to win an election, so why do you even try? Well, that's not going to, Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't going to change her vote, so why are you doing a petition to try to get her to change her vote? It's not about that particular outcome. It's about building a mailing list. It's about identifying the people who want to work with you. It's about building alliances. It's about setting up a larger initiative that you might do 6 months or a year or 2 years later. So the left thinks about these things. Again, this is the difference between thinking about something from like a short-term instant gratification perspective and a long-term exercise. The left is very aware that overthrowing the government is a long-term exercise. It's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen because the student government holds a vote on whether or not they should divest from Israel. But what does happen is even if the student government holds a vote, and even if like they present that to the president and the president doesn't do anything about it, they've still won because they got people actively involved. They made more connections. They understood who was on their side. They understood who was willing to do an act, who was willing to do a direct action, who was willing to do a protest. It's like a small thing that builds these relationships over time. Yeah, that's why it was so dumb for the right to be like, the No Kings protest wasn't successful. Well, first of all, it was the largest single-day protest in history. So it was actually resoundingly successful. Just from a pure numbers metric, the No Kings protest was the largest single-day protest in American history. But even if it hadn't been, they grew their mailing list exponentially. They got people involved that had never been involved before. They were able to identify who was going to show up and who wasn't. They got people to make signs. They got people to build websites. They got people to reach out to their friends. They got people to set them up for the next protest and the next protest and the next protest after that. Even if it didn't have the numbers, which it did, all of those things were factors too, and the right never reports on these things. They just say, they failed. It was a total failure. I only saw 3 white women in my town, and so that means that it was a total failure. It's like, bro.
Out campus. And if that's the case, then I think it's a good idea. But if it's the end in itself, I would say that it's not going to actually change material conditions necessarily, but it can be a very good exercise in political education and an exercise in list building. Like a lot of letters, right? People are like, the letters don't do anything. And I'm like, oh yes, they do. The letters mean that you could look up anybody's name and figure out if they are pro-Palestine or not. Like, you actually know where your strengths are. You know that 15 political scientists signed on and only 2 economists. You know which places you have support or not. As an organizer, those archives are crucial, actually. So it could be that. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get through all these, but we got a couple more here. We're going to try to let Eman answer, and then.
If your question keeps you up at night, you should email it to me, and then I can answer it during my insomnia bouts. In your lifetime, have there been any specific actions, protests, or events from organizing that stood out the most and motivated you to keep going? What was the story and how does it inspire you today? I will say that walking through the University of Chicago campus and hearing at the encampment songs that I grew up listening to, Arabic songs about Palestine, and looking up and seeing the Palestinian flag, was a life-changing experience. And I will never, ever forget that happened. If you haven't picked up on this, I'm a workaholic of sorts. Despite being a communist, I'm really, it's really so embarrassing how productivity oriented I am.
Are you telling me that communists do work? Because I was assured by the conservative right that none of them have jobs and they're all really lazy. And you're telling me this communist is laughing at the irony that not only does she have a big time professor job at a big time Ivy League institution, but that she's actually a workaholic and very productivity oriented. Are you telling me communists have jobs and they take it seriously? I never would have guessed. Exactly. See, now you're back. Now you're back. Now we're friends again. I'm going to unblock your other account. Now you're back. This is why it's stupid to underestimate the left. The more I learn about them, the more we underestimate them, the more yes. Yep. Exactly.
But for good. But, I spend, and I work in my office, I spend so much of my life in that place, toiling away, meeting with students, writing. And as someone who grew up poor and brown and Muslim and a woman and queer, all the things.
And queer.
I figured out how to compartmentalize my life, right? And to like figure out how to be in these elite institutions and like turn off all the things so that I can function and survive. And I just never imagined that those would come together, that like part of my life that I managed so carefully would like be brought in, right, to these spaces that I don't necessarily feel seen in by students. And that was just incredible. And I know you gave that moment to someone through your work. I just want you all to know that like you did that for someone. And so, yeah, I felt really inspired by that. Also running away from the cops over the Brooklyn Bridge. I had my comprehensive exams the next day, and we were at a protest protesting Eric Garner's murder by the police, and the police were trying to kettle us. And I was like, okay, everybody good, you good, you good, you good, because I really have to take my comprehensive exams tomorrow with all the people that came to the protest with me. And then everybody's like, we're fine, go. And then I ran like I had never run before. And that was the day I figured out I knew how to run. If you need to enough, your body will run, despite no experience of doing so. And people were like jumping out of the way, left and right. It was amazing. So that was also a highlight.
This is the last one.
Okay.
We'll go there, and then you can keep the rest and see if others come by.
Oh, any reflections, thoughts on the rally earlier today? You guys are amazing. Wow, I loved the rally. So many of you are excellent speakers. Is Paris here? Are they here? Well, Paris was incredible. Their speech was amazing. I thought it was an incredibly clever event. Like usually it's the same like 10 people giving, like rotated between speeches. And it was very clear that you really were able to draw your colleagues in to participate meaningfully in the action. And that was really incredible. And stick it out through the cold. And I just loved that you all were so sharp and so politically clear about the connections between the assault on Black history, the assault on trans people, the assault on immigrants, the assault on labor rights and Palestine. Like that was all so clear for you. So really like just amazing work. I felt so happy to be there. I listened to every single word. And I hope I'm at your next rally.
Got it? Uh-oh.
I tried. And of course, I have to end the way Palestinians always end, which is next year in Jerusalem.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we did it. We made it until the end. Thank you to everyone who came out. Listen, I think the most important part of this presentation was not, it didn't give us a lot of it. Well, okay, I guess it did give us a little bit of insight into what the left is going to be doing this fall, which is great. Let me just get this up. Hang on. I guess it did give us a little bit of insight, but, not a ton, but that's okay, because I think the insight that it did give us, which is essentially that, there we go. The left is not going to stop organizing. The left is not going to stop, no matter how much the Trump administration tries to attack them for being pro-Palestine protesters. It's actually only energizing them, and it's only helping them radicalize more people. And they're staying completely focused. They're organizing through the unions. They're going to be organizing this fall. I fully expect to continue to see encampments at universities in the fall, because we've been seeing them before, and we'll see if we have any more protests. I mean, the protests kind of seem to be winding down a little bit, but I have a feeling leading up to Labor Day, I suspect leading up to Labor Day, we're going to see some sort of big mass action before that. And then we'll see what happens in the fall when students go back to school and stuff. But I did enjoy that presentation. I think the biggest takeaway is just that Imam Abdelhadi hates the University of Chicago, who is her employer. And she is doing everything she can to use the resources of the University of Chicago to dismantle the University of Chicago, which is pretty representative of how many leftist college professors see the situation. And I do think that's a really important thing for people to understand, this kind of like balance between the faculty at universities and the administration at universities, the faculty being the communists, the administration being the bourgeois capitalists, and the faculty constantly working to try to organize against the administration. It's an interesting dynamic that I think a lot of people don't really understand. Anyway, that's going to conclude our Socialism Saturday for tonight. Thank you to everyone who sent in a super chat. I really do appreciate it. We blew out our goal yet again. If you are financially able to do so, the very best way you can support my work is by heading over to the Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and signing up for a membership, $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by people just like you who show up and you send me super chats and you sign up for my Substack. You guys help me keep independent from the political establishment so that I can always just show you what's going on and break down the language and talk about it and answer your questions and maybe yell at you and give you a good dressing down when you need it because you're not really paying attention. Another way you can, of course, support the work I'm doing is by heading over to leftwingstudies.com. This is the Center for Left-Wing Studies. It is my new nonprofit that I launched just this week. And if you feel so inclined to make a tax-deductible gift to this nonprofit to help me build things like archives of primary source material from the left and do things around studying the left in the same way they study us, you can head over here and give a gift. Just click on the Give button. And eventually I'm going to get a form on this website, but it's not working right now. So we're doing it this way. We're sending you over to a landing page where you can give a gift. I would love to raise $10,000 for the Center for Left-Wing Studies by the end of the year. I think that would be pretty great. I'm going to be doing grants and all sorts of that stuff with this thing too, but you can contribute and make a tax-deductible gift. If you feel like it, you can make a monthly gift. You can make a one-time gift, whichever you want. And that is another way that you can fund the work I'm doing, trying to build out basically a massive archive of primary source information about the left, making it publicly available. I want to do research conferences. I want to do a journal. I want to basically do everything the left is doing to us, but I want to do it from our side and have it be hinged into reality, no narrative, just facts, objectively analyzed, available to everyone. And so if you want to support that effort, please head over there and you can sign up for a donation there. Or, I don't know, you can just come hang out in the YouTube channel. That's fine too. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you spending some time with me. We do Socialism Saturday every Saturday at 6 p.m. I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. as well. We do all sorts of other stuff during the week. And, yeah, that's all I got. Mount the like button on the way out the door. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are not already. And I take Sundays off. We do movie night in the supporter Discord. I don't even know what movie we're watching tomorrow, but we will be watching a movie tomorrow night at 8 p.m. in the supporter Discord. We will also be watching another movie on Monday night at 9 p.m. in the supporter Discord. It's going to be a James Bond movie. You can check out the supporter Discord if you want to know what we're watching, and I will send out a message to everyone who's a supporter on the Substack tomorrow. If you don't have access to it yet, I will be sending out a link tomorrow on the Substack. So go sign up as a supporter and join the Discord when I send out the link. All right. That's all we've got, guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer. is influencing my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.